Welcome back to Rap Drinks. I'm Corey Tatarchik. I'm joined here today by my best friend, Adrianne Jorge. It's no joke.
Hi.
We've known each other. We met each other at Massachusetts College of Art, where Michael Freno also went to college, and also Bert, many other luminaries.
Many moons ago.
Many moons ago. And now we have the pleasure of being joined by her today to talk about her insane career as a projectionist.
Decades.
The person who puts the film on the screen, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Yeah.
Adrianne Jorge.
That's right.
Film to screen.
Cheers to that. Welcome,
we call
Adrianne.
ourselves the Projectionists. That's usually the name.
Cheers, cheers. All right.
So,
How goes it?
remember that time?
I started projecting at Mass Art.
You did?
Yeah, at the Film Society.
Tell us about the Film Society.
Saul Levine, who is our professor, the three of us know well.
Oh, yeah.
Ran the Film Society, and I started projecting that and making flyers in the library on the copy machine and taping them all over the campus. And then I was working at the Coolidge Corner Theater, Boston people.
Well, I love the Coolidge. I used to live right down the street. from the
Coolidge is magical.
Loved
It's
it.
And the
humongous.
concession stand, and one of the guys in the booth was like, "Oh, you're running the 16 over at Mass Art. We should teach you in the booth." And I was like, "Yeah, you should." And that was it. I started running 35 at the Coolidge, and I was like, "Oh, this is really fun." Little did I know.
How old were you?
19.
19, yeah.
Damn,
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
I can say that was 30 years ago. Do the math. Don't do the math.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not that long ago.
In my mind, it's not.
I know. I definitely don't feel. I just don't feel that way at
Yeah.
all. I'm like 24 in here.
Yeah.
So what drove you to, I guess, even have an interest in like being a projectionist? Like what was the inspiration for you, if there was one?
I think really I was a working class kid and I just needed a job to get me through school. And the concession stand didn't pay that well and the booth paid better.
Mhm.
So that was like an initial like, yes.
Yeah.
But once I started doing it, I was like, this is really cool. Like, threading the projector, this big machine, which at the Coolidge and at the Somerville Theater where I work now, it's these Norelco machines, which honestly, in 30 years, I have never come across them except at the Coolidge in my first booth and now at the Somerville in my current booth. I've run every other kind of projector over the years, but I've never come across these beautiful machines. It's like the Cadillac of projectors. It can run 35 millimeter and 70 millimeter like perfectly.
Wait, it does both?
It
just,
does
like,
both.
adjusts?
You have to pull components out and swap them out and
Huh.
do some adjustments, to go back and forth between 35 and 70. So I ran 70 at the Coolidge as well. And then I started working at the Brattle and the Museum of Fine Arts here I'm not there. I'm here in the Boston area. And it was like one thing led to another. It was like the booth sucked me in. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I moved to New York. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a crazy artist in New York. It's going to be crazy here, And I was like, oh, I need a job. And I had like a few jobs before I started working at Anthology Film Archive. That's where the weird filmmakers were. So I wanted to work there. And like I ran into some of them at some artist event and I just started chatting with them. Next thing I knew, I had a job projecting
You got sucked back
at
into
Anthology.
the booth.
Yeah. And I'd been doing other jobs, but it's just like the booth just went and I was in there. Sorry if that was gross sounding.
Do it again.
And then I tried joining the union then, but they hung up on me. They were like, "You're no one's
Wait,
son."
you called them and they were like,
Wow.
no.
I was like, well, I called all these theaters in town. This was in 1999. And I was like, can I get a job? Can I get a job? Because in Boston, it was like, oh, you're running film? Come work here. Like, it seemed like, okay, but now I'm in New York City. I'm like, okay, what's this going to be like? And they were like, you got to be in the union to work here. You got to be in the union to work here. Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay. So I called the union and they were like, and that was it.
How many women were in the union at that point?
There were some. I mean, I didn't know at that time, but there were some. And some of them might still be working. I don't know, but there weren't that many.
Yeah.
It was a rarity.
Yeah.
And then the way I got in was these friends of mine from the Boston area were doing the Nantucket Film Festival, and they invited me to come project there. And it was like a bunch of people that I knew, and it was fun. And the tech director there ended up becoming the technical director at Tribeca at the time. And he basically negotiated me into the union contract. He was like, because he had to negotiate a contract because it's all local 306. And he basically was like, I want her in my inspection team, handling all the prints and preparing them for the screenings. And I want you to give her membership. And then you'll have this beautiful big contract with the festival. And they were like, fine. So like, I went to the union office and they were like, here's your paperwork, you're a member now. And I was like,
you're like, yeah, I'm so happy to be a member of this
prestigious community.
Like,
You've been so welcoming.
yeah.
You weren't even related to any of them. That's crazy.
No. And there are good people in the union. I'm pro-union, all that, all that good stuff. But it was a tricky.
It's the bureaucracy of it.
It's a tricky situation, yeah. But I got in, and then from there, like once you're in the festival circuit, like then I got in a Sundance, and I started working there, and then from there it was just like Traverse City, Cine Vegas, Savannah. Dubai, Doha, the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm like flying on planes every like few weeks in a bunch of directions. And I was like, oh, the booth.
Really sucks in.
Here we go.
There's one in every town.
Yeah, there's many.
So do you get like, when you were now union, did you just like get a call and they're like, hey, we need you in this town, we need you in this city?
No, so the festival stuff and the union stuff are separate.
I see.
So the union stuff is strictly New York City.
Okay.
So, but what I'm saying is simultaneously I started getting gigs at festivals. So
I see.
That's just all over the place. That's just like, so this was happening simultaneously. By the time I like kind of took on like projection work full-time in the city, I'd been living here like half a dozen years, and I was like working some night shift job inspecting DVDs at a DVD authoring firm, losing my mind, like working the night shift. And someone was like, this guy I know who was running the Disney Park Avenue screening room was like, I can throw some shifts your way. And I was like, all right, I'm quitting my job and I'm just going to do that. And like, I had like 2 or 3 weeks of work lined up in the city. And then it all just exploded. And I started getting in all these screening rooms everywhere.
Damn.
It was like all over again. I mean, I was trying to get like production work in different places, like different, I don't know. It wasn't really working out.
Roles.
Yeah, different
what type
roles.
Of
but it wasn't
work
like
were you
just,
trying to get? Like,
I don't even know. I would
film
send
loader? How does it? Yeah.
I think I was trying post stuff, but
Oh.
I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't really prepared.
Yeah, I feel like
'Cause you went to
projection
mass
is.
art.
I went to art school. Like, no one really told me how to like get jobs. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, no,
they told me how to make beautiful art films, but
that was about it. Not how to get paid for them.
Not at all.
I didn't know what I was doing. But I didn't know what I was doing. And the booth was paying well. It was union work. So I was like, all right.
I feel like it's so niche. Like it's like
Yeah.
most people are trying to get probably into that, and then you're like, how do I get a production job?
Well, I don't know. I mean, at that time, like I didn't feel like being a projectionist was that I didn't feel like it was that exciting in that way because the movie gets to us when it's like done, right? So it's like we're just showing it to the public and like
Yeah,
it's
but
not
you're like
the glamour of
you're the way it gets to the
gatekeeper.
public.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening is like, especially at festivals like Sundance, which is an industry festival, and everyone's trying to sell their movie or get it picked up for distribution or whatever. It's like really high energy. And when you meet like filmmakers or producers or whoever, they're like being really nice to you because they don't want you to fuck up. But like they're ready to rip your hair out if you fuck up. So you're just like, it's just not like they don't necessarily trust that you know what you're doing. And I mean, I've had plenty of instances where literally like someone will be like, "Are you sure you know how to do this?" And I'm just like,
I'm looking at the camera.
even like, you know, in the last few years. Like, and I thought, you know, now I have gray hair. They're finally going to stop being like, "Do you know how to do your job?" But like, nope, doesn't matter.
Don't just double down and go, "No, it's my first day," and then hit like.
No, my favorite thing now is like, you know, like
What's that?
What's it called? Flim?
someone like asked me recently, like in the last few years, like, how long did it take you to learn how to do this? Which was like an event that I'd run, and like they implied like it was I think it was might have been 70, I don't remember. And the implication was that I had just learned this, and I was like 25 years because it was like a few years ago, and I was like 25 years, you know, like dude, what do you think? Do you see this?
All from projection.
Yeah, exactly.
The booth did this.
Exactly. You people did this.
The life rat.
Wait, but who's saying that? The filmmakers? The
No,
directors?
it was just like, I don't remember. That was like an event where I don't remember what the movie was now, but I think it was at the Somerville, and I was running something, and then I came downstairs and I was with the other projectionist, and someone he knew asked me that question. And I was just like, dude, why do you think I just learned how to do something? You know, like, because I have tits? Is that why? Like, if I was like a fat dude, you wouldn't ask me how long it took me to learn this. You'd just assume I was born fucking doing it, you know?
That's true. They have tits too.
Manly tits.
Well said. Well said. I've seen a few.
They're manly. That's the difference. This is like a running theme whenever women are on this podcast.
Oh my God.
It comes up in like the first 5 minutes.
I remember one time in the DR, I was at the Cinematheque, and I was getting ready for a screening, and I had some questions for the filmmaker, and it's the DR. So like no one's around. It's like DR time. It's like it's showtime, but no one's around. It was just like total chaos all the time. And I'd been asking like the house staff, like when the filmmaker arrives, I just have some questions about the presentation, like probably just like some projection settings or aspect ratio questions, you know, really basic stuff. No one was coming, and I was like, whatever, I'm just going to show it the way I think they want it shown because no one's really communicating with me, you know. And then suddenly these people walk into the booth, and they walk right past me. They go, because there was like another sort of back room in that booth. They go in there, they're looking around. I don't know who anybody is. I'm not from there. And I was like, oh, that must be someone from the building looking for something. I don't know.
HVAC.
And then they come up to me and they're like, we're looking for the projectionist. And I was like,
boy.
that's me. You know? And I was like, dude, what the fuck?
Irate here.
Yeah. Do I need to like strap my tits down or something?
I'll just get a shirt that says "It's me."
It's me. I'm the one. And then you run the risk of them giving you that look like, oh, it's you. And then you're like, oh, I know what you're thinking. Like, does she know what she's doing?
It's
Oh
an
my
endless
God.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
aside from that frustration of dealing with that bullshit,
You can go down that avenue for a while if you want.
I'm sure, yeah. I'm curious about like, you know, because you probably want to, like you said, you want to know the settings for projecting a film. You want to know what the aspect ratios are. Like, what are the stakes like when you're projecting for like a festival versus like, you know, at the Somerville Theater? Are the stakes higher at a festival because more people are stressed out?
Totally. Like a lot of these screenings, they might only, like a movie might only show once or twice. I mean, they're not all the Sundance Film Festival where you know, some smaller festivals don't have the same stakes, but filmmakers come, they're nervous. They're, you know, a lot of times people just throw everything into their movie, you know, and you have to make a lot of decisions sometimes on the fly. The reason we have an inspection department is because we're sort of QCing all of the content and making sure like there's no red flags that are going to show up at showtime, so that, because it's not always the same person inspecting it that's projecting it. So you're looking out for those red flags before it gets to the projection booth, so the projectionist isn't like, oh shit, you know. But sometimes smaller festivals, like really small festivals, might not have that robust a crew, and so you get thrown things. Like one time I was at the Providence Film Festival and it was the middle of the summer and this projection booth had no air conditioning. This is a theme, okay? And the windows were like bay windows. It wasn't like a little portal window. So I had to keep the lights off normally, but I couldn't open this window during daylight hours because it would be too bright for the projection. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm like in there all day, sweating bullets. And I get this one screening where, this is a long time ago because the feature was 16 millimeter, which hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah.
The feature was 16 and the aspect ratio for that is like 1:37, and which is like a little bit more square. But there was a 35 millimeter short, which was like 185, which is more rectangular, like closer to 16:9. And the masking in that auditorium is not just manual, like most masking is like a rope and pulley kind of system. Like it's either motorized where in the booth you hit a button and it goes, you know, or you go down there and you have to do the little rope and pulley thing. And this one was like this insane scaffolded like black curtain on these fat bases, and it was just like me, you know. And so the short is like wider and shorter, and the feature is more square. Forget that it's 16 or 35. Just I have to deal with an aspect ratio change, and I'm alone. So I made this executive decision. I'm going to mask for the feature because you will be sitting there watching that the longest.
Yeah.
And that's like square. And I'm going to show the short, like I'm going to tilt the projector down so that it's like curtained nice on three sides, but the top will just be fuzzy. But the whole image is there.
Yeah.
Like I'm not cropping the movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I tried finding the director of the short film to tell him like, hey, FYI, you're going to see this on the screen and you're going to think that somehow I cropped your movie, but I didn't crop it. Like, it's just a fuzzy line at the top instead of like a
sharp edge. Yeah.
And I couldn't find him. And I think I found his wife and I told his wife and then it was showtime.
She definitely relayed that message.
She was like, yeah.
And I was
She was
like,
like,
Do you
sure,
know
whatever.
what she was doing though?
And so I started running this, the short is first, right? And so I start running the short film. This director comes in the booth.
Oh,
Damn.
what is it with these people just busting into the booth?
Flipping out, like screaming at
Did
me.
you guys
Like,
not have locks on the doors?
Yeah, like what the hell?
well, it was hot in there. I had doors open.
Mike.
It might have been dusk, so I don't even know if the window was open yet.
Yeah.
I'm sweating bullets. I'm in a bad mood. I'm sweating. Like, and like this guy comes in, like, you're fucking up my movie. Do you know how much money I put into that? And he's like having an aneurysm. And he's like, and I was like, dude, I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. It's just, and he's like, pull the gate out. Pull the gate out. I'm like, I can't pull the gate out. The film's running through it. That would ruin your film. I can't pull the gate out. You don't know what you're saying. Like,
What is that? What does he think that means? What does that mean?
it doesn't mean anything good. Like, when a movie's running through the projector.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's some shit you do at Mass Art, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
and I was just like, no, I can't pull it out. So I pulled like the aperture plate out because I was like, is that what you mean? Like I wanted to show, if I pulled the aperture plate out, it would have shown him that I was not cropping anything. So like I pulled it out. So the audience is now seeing this like shit going on screen. And I'm like, see? And he was just like, oh, you're not. And I like put the plate back in because, you know, I got to put it back for the people out there to prioritize.
Yeah.
And then he's just like yelling at me. And I was like, I just don't know what came over me in that moment. I was just like, do you want to fucking hit me? Just fucking hit me. Just fucking hit me if that's what you want to do. Because he was like getting closer and closer to me. And I could smell the booze on him. Like he clearly had been like nervous drinking all afternoon. And I was like, just fucking hit me. And like that, like...
Oh my God.
Like made him go like,
And he threw up in his mouth.
and he was just like, he like said something like, called me a bitch or something, and then like stormed out of the room.
That made him feel better.
Yeah, and I'm all like amped up now. I have to do a real change to the 16 millimeter. This all happened in a 10-minute movie, and now I have to. Yeah.
You know how much money you
meanwhile,
put?
it ends and the audience is like,
Yeah, that is like
You're like, what was that?
I know.
what the fuck happened in the middle there?
Yeah.
something about
And
mango
I'm sure
trees.
people could hear it. I mean, it was just this like bay window, like, and I was, and then I'm all like,
they totally must have heard that.
This part performance art, part.
Oh my god, this is what Mass Art prepared you for.
I
This
guess.
is
And
exactly.
I was like all like,
Jesus
and my
Christ.
friend Rich came in because he was handling the other fucked up thing about that booth was I couldn't even control the volume in the booth, like, because it wasn't really meant to be a projection booth, like, or maybe it was, I don't know. This was like 20 something years ago. My friend Rich was in the auditorium and he saw the guy coming down the stairs like all like crazy. And so he came in to check on me and I was just like, ah! I was like, I gotta change to the 16 millimeter now. Can you just check the sound for me? You know?
Jesus, who knew that?
And it ran fine. The show was fine. Everything was
Of course
fine.
it was.
Like,
you
know,
were in charge.
and like when the sun came down, I opened the window and like almost threw myself in the Providence River. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Why am I in a booth? You know?
Oh, Lord.
Who knew that
It was
projecting
so-
films was like
I was like,
an
wow.
action sport?
But that's
Like,
an example of like an angry filmmaker.
Yeah,
you know,
like high stakes.
I'm like, oh my God, dude.
where's he now?
I don't know. I don't remember the dude's name or his movie. I don't know. Like maybe he'll
Christopher
watch this
Nolan.
and be like, that was me. I think that was me. Or he won't remember because, you know, he was drinking. He was wasted. He was like totally
Another
shit-faced.
feature of film festivals.
Oh my God.
Yes.
So when you get these, you don't have any prep. So people just give you these movies. You don't have like a screening beforehand, like a sound check world, or
I mean, it depends. Like on, like at Sundance, there's like a really thorough inspection department, right? We're not necessarily pre-projecting 35. We're talking about 35 now. We're not like pre-projecting 35 millimeter. There would be like 200 something titles. You can't possibly do that.
I'm just surprised you're not like there's not something at the beginning of the movie, like sort of like colorists when they were color timing old movies. It'd be like you're running it, and then they'd time scene for scene. So it's like you wouldn't project reel one. You'd see like a little bit of it, and you'd be like, all right, it looks good. Like this looks right, and then reel two.
Well, it's usually in a festival environment a lot of the times because it's playing in so many screens. It's built into one feature. So it's either playing on it depends on the festival. I'm being broad here.
Yep.
Oftentimes it would either be on a platter or what we call a mutt, or a tower, which is where they build the film onto like a 12,000 foot reel. So 20 minutes.
12,000. How
20
many
twen-
CBS receipts is that?
I know, right?
Two and a half. Maybe
That's
5.
only like 1/16 of Oppenheimer.
Oh my God, don't even go there with
We
me.
can't get into the Oppenheimer section yet. We have to save that to when Mike taps out for Bert. Drink up.
On it.
So wait, 12,000
On a tower, yeah.
So a print usually ships in 20-minute reels. We're talking about 35 millimeter here. And a 20-minute reel is like 2,000 feet, which is a reel about that big. And so a feature length, pre-digital feature length, talking 90 to 100 minutes, it's like 5 or 6 reels.
Yeah.
You know? So it's usually in like 2 big cans, comes in UPS, those guys. Anyways. So we would take those and build them onto big 12,000 foot reels for a festival environment, because it might be like a Sundance, it might be playing all over the mountain. So like we would have like 19 screens and we'd be playing a movie would over the course of 10 days might play half a dozen times. So you can't do changeovers. So my point is you get the movie. It's just this one big thing. And it's not like you can just play 5 minutes of it and then like pull that big reel off the projector and pull the take up and then like walk over to the rewind table and stop them on there and rewind them. Like it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So there would be filmmakers that would want like a sound check or some kind of test, and we would have to allot time for that to either.
Did you get paid extra?
The projectionists would. I don't remember what the arrangement was. I mean, you're getting paid by the day. They're day rates.
Oh,
so.
right.
But sometimes if there would be something happening like late at night, you might get kicked a little extra or something.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a complex system too. Like now, I don't know what the even is entailed when you go into a production booth now, but I imagine like it's not as simple as you like putting one reel on and hitting a button and then it just does all the magic.
God.
So
can I tell you about last Tuesday?
sure.
Tell us about
I'm going
last
off
Tuesday.
the rails here. I'm
Let's go.
sorry,
Let's do
but
it.
like,
And that's what we do here.
so I'm working at
Cheers.
I've worked all over the world. I've worked at like high-end film festivals, all this stuff, and now I'm working 1 day a week at my beautiful neighborhood movie theater, the Somerville Theater. It's a beautiful Art Deco little palace. I love it.
Gorgeous.
And they have like one big majestic screen, and we can run on those Norelco machines, 35 or 70. And we have 2 little screens downstairs that are usually digital only. But one of the screens still has a 35 millimeter projector and a platter system. And for reasons that are too complicated to get into, we decided to run First Omen on the platter downstairs, which we haven't run since that Whitey Bulger movie that Scorsese made. How many years ago was that?
That was forever ago.
Yeah, that was the last time we ran this machine.
Johnny Depp played
yeah,
Whitey
Johnny
Bulger
Depp.
with like the weird contacts.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one.
Oh.
So that was like a bunch of years ago. So we had to like dust off the platter.
Something mass.
Sorry, it's pronounced
Black
Whitey
mass.
Bulger.
Black mass.
Black
It's
mass.
pronounced Bulger, guys.
Is it Black
Bulger.
Mass?
I think so.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I'll
Black
look it
Mass.
up.
Something mass.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp mass.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Bulger.
Johnny Bulger.
Johnny Bulger.
Mass.
It is Black Mass.
Hey,
Thank you so
nailed
much,
it.
Alan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Put your
Confirmed.
phone
Anyways, so like I had to go in an extra day and like remind myself how to use this giant machine that I hadn't used in a bunch of years. And it was like a lot of muscle memory. I was like, oh, okay. And I went in early and I made sure to like get it all threaded and go through the projector and do the take up and everything. And I was like, okay. And I was like, started the movie, everything went fine. And the other little booth, the other little screen down there is in the same projection booth as it's like a digital house, which is like easy. It's automated. It's just a server with files, whatever. So I'm like looking at the screen for, Black Omen. I'm looking at the platter. Everything's running fine. Then the manager calls me. He's like, the bulb went out in 2, which is the digital house. And I was like, oh. So I go over to the digital projector and like the lamp went out and I was like, fucking pain in the ass. So what do I have to do? This is how exciting it is. I was like, go into the Christie menu. I was like, okay, pause the movie on the GDC server, hit lamp on, 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 until it turns back on, then unpause the movie, and then it, and then it plays. But then it kept going out like for the whole movie. And I was like, it went out like 4 or 5 more times. So I'm babysitting a server to go pause, lamp on, lamp on, lamp on, lamp on. Meanwhile, I'm looking over at the Black Almond and I'm like, that thing's running totally fine. Machine hasn't been used in like 10 years. It's running perfectly. Back to the digital. And then it was so messed up that David, my booth mate, was like, well, that's an old bulb. Why don't you change the bulb on the projector? And I was like, oh, God. So between movies, I had to like open the back of the machine and get the, tools and do the thing and change the bulb. And I was like, okay, I think I fixed it. Nope. Kept going out. Finally canceled the second show. I was like, this is just a neighborhood movie theater. Not the most exciting, but it's just an example. Like, oh, digital's easy. Not tonight. I'm like, what the hell?
That's what's one of my favorite things about you, though, is that you can like take a 70 millimeter projector like apart and then put it back together. You're so nerdy techie about all of the bits and the bobs and like you were saying, like, it's not that cool. Like, I would go into the booth. I would like go visit you in the booth and you'd be like, hold on, I got to do a real change. And you would like the huge like 70 minute, what they weigh like 50 pounds or something. Like,
yeah,
it's like a bag of cement. You're like, hold on, I got a bag of cement.
Hold on, I got to load a bag of cement that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, exactly. And like all the parts everywhere. You're like, this is I don't even know what they're called. Like, what are they? You're like a surgeon of these crazy machines that are like made for one specific thing only.
It's like a lot of it is like, I've been around all the right old guys or older guys who've been like, Adrianne, let me tell you how this works. I'm like, okay, tell me. And then for some reason, all of these like hilarious older dudes are always like the really brilliant ones are always like, you come here. I'm going to show you stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I've just been really lucky in that way. And yeah, I'm like a bit of a nerd. So I pick it up. And then I have to like put up with people who don't believe that I know my shit.
We're like, pull the gate out.
Like, little do you just in a way I was like, go ahead and fucking hit me because then I get to hit you back.
I'm gonna throw this bag of cement at you.
Meanwhile, people in the audience are like, this is way more interesting.
I know. And that's the other thing. I used to call it like the cure to cancer syndrome. It's just like people get all like amped up like this is the most important thing. This is my life savings. You can't fuck this up. And then it's like a 10-minute movie and it's over. And by the end of the night, no one even freaking remembers it. Sorry, I'm being so negative now.
No.
It's the truth. It's
like,
short film screening series.
Is it really worth being an asshole to someone? Like, come on.
Never.
No.
It's never
the
not
answer
worth
is
it.
no.
No.
It's never worth it.
Because then we end up talking about you on this podcast.
It's true.
Pretty much. Yeah.
You know who you are.
So outside of like the film festivals, I know you got to work in like private screening rooms as well when you were in New York. How did that come about? Like you being like a working in private screening rooms, or even being like a personal projectionist to a notable director.
So I got in. How did I get in I don't know how I got into all the private screening rooms, but like I got into the Disney Park Avenue one. God, I actually can't remember how, but the one you're referring to, I got called by the union to go do an AV job at like the Javits Center or something, or the Marriott, and I didn't really want to do it. And I was like really annoyed. I didn't like AV jobs kind of like at a hotel.
What's an AV job?
Yeah, what's that?
It's just like you're wheeling all these cases around and setting up video projection for like conferences and shit. It's just like...
So it's production.
So it's corporate.
It's production for like conferences, you know? It's like the AV part of it.
Corporate projection.
It's fine.
VTR.
It's perfectly fine work. It just wasn't my thing. I didn't really like to... I wanted to be in the booth.
Yeah.
And...
Boo.
and like... Anyway, anyways, my shop steward was just like, said the business agent wants you to go tomorrow on your lunch break to interview at Woody Allen's screening room. And I was like, okay, really? And he was like, yeah, you should go. And I was like, really? I was like, I was like, come on. And I got along with this steward, and I was just like, he's just sending me to make him look good. Like, he really, like, a buddy of his is going to get this job. I'm just you know, showing diversity or something. I don't know, you know, like
fulfilling the quota.
Yeah. I'm like, and like, I knew the union elections were coming up. So I was like, he wants me to vote for him probably too, or something. I was like, and he was like, just go. I'll cover for you. Go on your lunch break. Just go. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll go. And it was for Woody Allen. It was for Woody Allen's screening room. And I was just like, okay, fine. So I went home. I looked at my resume and I was like, I think this is good enough, you know?
Good enough for Woody Allen,
this is like,
for sure.
I'm not going to get the job. Why should I care? You know, I'll present myself like I always do professionally, but like, so I showed up and I handed them my resume, and it's an office full of women, and they were like, a woman? And I was like, hi. And I hand them my resume, and then they ask me questions and I answer them. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. And they're like, you do know what you're doing. I'm like, I know. And they're like, wow. And I was like, yeah. And then they're like, we'll let you know. And I was like, okay. And then I went back to work and I was like, whatever, I did it, you know. And then they called me like the next day or whatever. And they're like, you got the job. And I was like, oh, I did. And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't vote for wow. Because I was like, whatever. And I think they were annoyed that I got the job because, like, they wanted their buddy to get the job. And so I didn't get they didn't get it and I did. But it ended up working out for me.
So
being a chick actually worked out.
Yeah. The one time.
The one time.
So you start working at so he had a private screening room, like where? Like in his...
Yeah, set the scene, because it's
like a few blocks away from the Disney Park Avenue screening room. It's just like in one of these buildings that has like a doorman, and, you know, I'm like suddenly working in this like fancy, it's a residential building that has like a doorman, and like you'd walk in like with all the fancy people. Dirtbag me going to the booth. But yeah, and it was hilarious. I mean, that screening room was like decorated in it was like when we were born, like in 1970 something. And like it was like the walls were like olive green. And there was like they were velour olive green, and the couch, the couch and chair. It was like, this is actually a nicer yellow, but it was like a mustardy yellow, like couch and chair, and like that plexiglass rounded like coffee table. You know, am I setting the scene here?
Say more.
And it was like really like, you know, I'm like a total thrifter person, so I was like, ooh, it's really cool in here. But you know, this other side of me is like, it's a green room. For watching film. And so what would happen every year, they would do like editing and post all this stuff. Like he always shot his movies in like, he would do pre-production in the spring, shoot his movies in the summer. At that time when I was working for him, it was in Europe, and I wouldn't go, and they'd come back from Europe with all of this film, and then they would be editing, and I would be getting, they would be editing on the Avid and assembling work prints, and then I would be projecting them over and over again in the screening room. And it would just be
crazy.
Like 20-minute reels. And that would go from like September through like Christmas. Then I'd go away in January to Sundance. And usually in that time he would be, I don't totally remember, like he'd be doing like color over at like Technicolor Deluxe, and like sound at Dolby. So he'd be in these other screening rooms doing that stuff, you know? And then I'd be back in February, and he'd be back, and he'd be watching his prints for the first time after doing all of this other post stuff. And he'd be watching them, and they'd be like, the color would look totally wrong to him. And they would be like, Adrianne, what's wrong? Like, it doesn't look right. What's going on? I'm like, the walls are green. And they'd be like, it can't be that. Replace the screen. And I'd be like, Okay, I'll replace the screen. It's kind of an old screen, but it's white. It looks good, you know. And like I replaced the screen one year, and then another year, you know, same story. I'd come back. It's February. It doesn't look right, and I'd be like, the walls are green, and they'd be like, replace the reflectors in the lamp houses, and I'd be like, okay. So I would replace the reflectors in the lamp houses, and eventually, like I'd be tweaking all of these things until finally, and he would be sending the prints back to the lab. He'd be like, the color's wrong, and he'd be like, a little more magenta to like counter the green in the room. Like in my mind, I'm like, the walls are green. The walls are green. and then like he'd finally be happy with it, you know, again, and then it would go off to premiere at Cannes, and and then it would hit the world. It would be out in the world, and like all my projectionist friends would text me like, hey, I ran this movie and your name's in the credits. Why is the movie so red? And I'd be like, because the walls are green.
The walls are
green.
They'd be like, right, got that.
Oh, is she okay?
Oh
It's
my
like
God.
it's just easier to bring green velour curtains into all the movie theaters than
Yeah, I'm like, there's a reason that like Deluxe has like gray walls and Dolby has black walls. There's like a reason. They're not.
That's
green.
crazy. They never listened to you? They never changed.
I
As far
mean,
as you know, they never
Not
changed
in a
it?
like you're an idiot kind of way, but it was
No,
just
but like,
like
they never changed the green
it
walls.
could have even just been like, we're never going to get Woody to redecorate. So that can't be the reason. Like,
Yeah.
we just got to move on beyond that. It
Oh,
could have
yeah.
been that. Like, I don't know. Like, I wasn't privy to those conversations. I was in the booth.
like who knows who made those green velour curtains?
Yeah,
Like,
it
those
might
could
have
be
been-
one of a kind.
Might have been sentimental.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, every year I'd always be nervous in February. So like, oh my God, the green walls. It's like the color. Oh God, here we go. What am I going to...
Should have just
what
like
can I change this time?
I should have like came up with like a really subtle magenta filter you could have like slid in front of the projection just for that moment, and then they're like yank it out and then send them.
They would go to con and it would be like the way.
It's
like,
perfect.
Yeah.
A magenta screen.
You could have worked with Deluxe to like build like a specific filter for like probably cheaper than doing all the other things.
I know.
That was
You know?
above your pay grade.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I was like, time to go. You know?
But that was like a salaried job with benefits.
It was, I mean,
It wasn't.
it was
I know it was
union.
seasonal.
So the way the union worked is like if you work a certain amount of hours per quarter, it goes towards your insurance. So I could be working at 3 different booths and like it would all be going towards my benefits.
Yeah.
So
But do jobs like that exist anymore?
he was like the last director to really be shooting on film like that in the city. I
And,
mean,
like-
except for a little bit Scorsese. And I actually like worked briefly in that booth too, but
The
That-
Scorsese booth?
yeah.
Was Johnny Depp there?
Was it green?
He's like,
No,
"It's me,
I
Whitey
think it was like
Bulger."
gray or black. I don't remember. It was
And
like
that's why they look so good.
yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. So insane. Anyways.
So wait, was it like regular hours, or would you just randomly get
The
called?
Woody
and then they'd be
gig was a
like,
nice gig. It was
Yeah.
I was on call 40 hours a week.
oh wow,
So I was guaranteed like 40 hours. And some weeks I would put that in, and some weeks I wouldn't show up at all. Like I'd call in the morning and be like,
Am I working today?
Yeah, yeah. And they might be like, no, we don't need you today. Or they might be like, just stand by, we might call you. So it's not like I could go to the movies or do anything that would pull me away from being accessible. I always
Yeah.
kind of had to keep myself on the ready, but like I could be doing my own shit. Like sitting at home working on my own movies or whatever. So it was kind of nice.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. Those were the days, man. I have not had that kind of cush since.
No.
That shit don't exist. Or it probably does somewhere, but I don't know about it anyway. So yeah.
So was there a point where that kind of work started to really, well, I'm sure it kind of started to go away. So like how did you, I guess, continue this career of like what was that lull like for you?
It was the summer of 2010.
I
The
remember
great
it now.
digital rollover of 2010.
The great digital rollover.
Of 2010, yeah.
Okay.
You didn't hear about it?
I wasn't in
We
the
weren't
booth.
in the booth. Yeah.
Sorry, this is getting gross. You're gonna cut it all out.
No, it's just gonna be a super cut of you going.
No context.
That's definitely happening.
I can tell Bert's excited about it.
Yeah. No, like when the technology, the digital cinema technology they're called DCPs. They're basically hard drives, but they're authored in a specific way. So it's not just like a QuickTime ProRes. It's like an actual authored file that's encrypted.
It's like a DVD on a hard drive.
It's a lot fancier than a DVD. It's like a 200 gig.
It's Bitcoin.
It can be 70 gigs
got
to
the
200
blockchain.
gigs, depending on the
Hard drive.
on the movie or whatever, and they're on these like crew drives that like these big metal. There still are on these big metal drives, and you like plug them into these slots on the servers, and then there's a key that also gets emailed. It's called a KDM, and it is an encrypted XML file that basically is specific to that server at that time.
Ah.
So if you're like intercepting the UPS guy and you're like, ooh, I got like, I don't know what's.
New Fast and Furious movie?
Yeah, the new Fast and Furious movie, hard drive. I'm going to go home and rip it and watch it. No, you're not, because you need the KDM, and the KDM is going to talk to a specific server for a specific window of time. So you have to, in a festival environment, that can be really crazy, because it's like you have 19 screens, aka 19 servers.
Oh, wow.
And so you get 200 titles playing on 19 servers over 10 days. Hello, data.
You need
So the
graphic
job
of math
literally
up here.
transformed from this building these 12,000-foot reels all day. I'm talking about the inspection crew now at festivals.
Talking 2010.
We're talking 2010. I mean, it sort of started really.
No, it started in 2010. That's when we have to keep with the story.
Yes. So like it went from these big reels to suddenly these hard drives and these little XML files, and now suddenly my job at Sundance isn't like these big rewinds. We're still using the rewind tables, but now they have like 2 or 3 computers on them with like lots of monitors, and you're sitting there like cross-checking all of this information and processing stuff to make sure that it's all coded correctly.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like Bitcoin level shit.
It's just
Like, I don't understand.
oh my God, I don't even know how to explain it. It's so like,
Yeah, because you went from something like cool and magical and physical.
I mean, it's still, I guess, kind of cool. I don't know.
No, it's not.
No, it's,
We need the key to decrypt the hard drive to play the movie.
Yeah.
Call Vin Diesel.
and like
It kind of sounds like hackers, You're
Yeah.
just like out there like
yeah, and like your problems become like, this is a corrupted file, or like the key isn't going to unlock the movie at the right time, and like,
It's not like melting film on fire anymore, which is
No.
way more
It's not
exciting.
like the time I ran Pee-wee's Big Adventure at the Traverse City Film Festival at an outdoor screening, and like all these moths were like everywhere, and they were just going, and I was just like spent the whole movie shooing moths away because I was like, oh my God.
They were like in front of the projector.
I was like on the back of a truck running Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I was just literally like shooing moths away for the whole movie. And then I knew that it was getting picked up by
That's so
the
Like your
distributor.
hands.
That's so Pee-wee. That's the perfect movie to have this happen.
I know. And then like when the thing was over, I had to ride my bike over to the warehouse.
You're on your
Yes,
bike.
I rode my bike, and it was a vintage bike too. And I like rode my bike to the warehouse where we prepped all the prints, because I knew the distributor was, or the courier was coming to get it that night. So I had to literally, as soon as the screening was over, like someone was going to grab the print and drive it over to the warehouse. And I went and met them there on my bike, you know, like I had to, it was on a 12,000 foot reel. So I had to break it back down to the 2,000 foot reels, which I can do really fast because I can really palpate the film and feel the little splicing tape. Like it's really subtle, but I'm really good at it. So I would like break it down into the 2,000 foot reels. But what was I finding? Hello, Stan Brakhage moth light. Hello.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to Stan Brakhage moth light.
I was finding like these like moth parts, like because of the heat of the lamp and the print and the moth, it would like meld onto the print. And so I was like literally trying to clean moth bits off of the print. And in some cases it was like mixing with the emulsion and making these like crazy textures.
Oh my God,
and I was like, oh my God, this print is like, I was like, it wasn't like all over the print, but there were some like pretty bad spots. You know, I was like,
That's
oh,
amazing.
shit. So I'm like trying to clean mods off the print and pull it apart and get it ready for the curtain. I was like, here you go.
It's good. You're like,
It's good.
This is the second time that your mass art education has prepared you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The second time. That's insane.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my
I
God.
mean, I'm sure there's way more times than that.
They died for film. All those moths were like, we die for our art.
Well, then there was the time at Anthology when I was running, and I told you this one where I was like running a movie, and it was 35 millimeter changeover, so reel to reel on 2 projectors. So now they're not built on the big reels; they're on little 20-minute reels, and so you run 20 minutes on projector 1, and then at the end of that reel, you're ready to switch over to projector 2 seamlessly, so no one in the audience knows any better. Like it's just like one long movie, but we time it perfectly so you just see it like, whew, now you're in reel 2, whew, now you're in reel 3, whew, now you're in reel 4 every 20 minutes, right? You just don't know. So I like, I like switched
sound
over.
effects. coming
I
out of the
love it.
booth.
I was about to switch over to a reel on projector 2. I remember it was projector 2, and I looked over. I finished like the changeover and I was like, okay. Then I looked over at projector 1 and the take-up belt on the projector had snapped. And so the last like few seconds or minute of the film had like literally like collected on the floor because there was no spinning reel to take it up. And I was like, there's like another 40 minutes of this movie. I was like, what do I do? And I was like, okay. These are those moments where you're like, stay calm. It's going to be fine. And I'd be like, all right, I'm just going to pick this up and put it in a clean virgin garbage bag so it's not dusty. I'm going
That's
to
like the
do
title of your
this
memoir.
really slowly. I'm going to like, look at this belt came apart. What is it leading to? Up in there. I'm crawling under the machine. I'm like, I'm going to just pull this out. Okay. I think I can put it back. I'm like, okay. I got to splice this thing together. It's old. Okay. Are there any more? Let me look through this booth. I don't see a belt anywhere. I was like, okay, what do I have? I have a paper clip. Okay. I have a little like hole punchy thing there. Okay. I'm like, all right, mass art in the house. I'm like,
This is the third example.
Pliers, yeah. Get that nice and flush like you're in jewelry class again. Yeah. All right. Ooh, that looks good. All right. Let's go over there. Let's get it back in the machine, and like you're threading it through and you get it all there. Like, okay, how's that other reel doing? Okay, I've got like maybe.
Wait. There's a whole nother reel running.
The
while
movie's
you're-
running. The movie's running. I have 20 minutes. It's a countdown. I have 20
This
minutes.
is like executive
Fast and the
decisions,
Furious.
like
I bet right here.
disarming the bomb.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So I'm like, there's maybe 7 minutes left on there. Okay, let's work faster. All right. And I get it on there and I'm like, all right, let's get the next reel. Let's thread that. Does it look like it's going to spin? And I go, okay, let me run the motor for a minute. Okay. All right. Thread it. And then like, look for that reel to end. Next reel. Movies happening. No one out there knows, and you're in the booth alone going, I'm fucking awesome. And nobody knows how awesome I am.
These are the texts that I would get. Oh my God. guess what I just did in the booth? Like, you have to tell somebody.
Someone needs to know that I'm like a superhero.
Was it a paperclip? Yes. Amazing.
Do you remember what movie it was?
No idea. None.
Movie.
I've literally probably projected every fucking movie, and I remember like 5% of them. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the times.
You remember that one short film?
I don't remember. I remember the filmmaker. God.
There have not been a lot of movies that you've been like, you have to see this movie. I think you've seen you've like projected like every movie ever made. Probably. Even like weird, because of all the festivals you've done.
Yeah,
like
and
a
I've worked
million
in
weird
anthology
movies.
for like 10 years, so I ran a lot of weird stuff there, like film festivals, whatever.
But there's probably been like 5 movies in our entire friendship that you've been like, you got to see this movie.
Don't ask me to pick 5.
No, I'm not going to.
I can't recall.
I'm not
like
going
that.
to.
Go.
I just love that like you've seen them all,
Yeah.
and you're like, there's probably 5 good
But
ones.
it's also a different experience from when you're watching too.
In all
You're not,
cinema
like-
history.
You're not like watching because you're watching the projectors, but you're sort of watching the movie.
Sort of watching them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like totally watching them. I love when
Yeah.
I tell people what I do. They're like, oh, so you just sit there and watch the movies. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I do.
I
Like
push a
in your
button
living room
and then it
hitting
just
play on the
happens.
DVD player.
Lamp on, lamp on, lamp on.
Yeah, I know.
I know that there was another situation where you had to troubleshoot the projection, and it was at the Nantucket Festival.
The Nantucket Film Festival. Oh my God.
Rich
Can we
people.
talk about
Behaving badly.
hot, sweaty boots a little
I
more?
thought you said
Hot-
all and I was like,
Sweaty
okay,
boobs.
how sweaty boobs.
I have hot,
In the
sweaty boobs when I'm in a hot, sweaty booth. All right.
How to speak English. Repeat after me.
How to say things
Hot,
in English.
sweaty boobs.
No, booze, no.
Boobs.
more.
So it was like probably 99 or 2000.
Mhm.
I had never run a platter system before, which if you don't know what a platter system is, I might have to explain this.
Please do.
Yeah,
What's a platter system?
tell us more.
So I've been saying how for film festivals, sometimes we build prints onto 12,000 foot reels so that they can run seamlessly on one reel, whatever. Anyways, the other system, which is the more standard system in multiplexes, is a platter. And a platter, think of like a pizza platter. You know, it's like horizontal instead of what we picture as the reel-to-reel running vertically.
Mhm.
The platter system is basically, the typical platter is 3 platters connected on a tower. So you've got 1, 2, 3. And you can have up to 2 movies built on a platter. Only one runs at a time. And you build it onto the platter heads in. Now what that means is the beginning of the movie threads into the middle of the platter. Are you following me? Is this all good? I can't
Already
tell.
like,
I'm there.
you
I'm
can
there.
do 2 at once.
All right, I gotta.
Middle out.
So yeah, so
Middle out.
So if this is the platter, the middle of the movie is the beginning of the movie is in the middle, and the end of the movie is on the outside. Think of
Yeah.
it like if you're spooling something.
Yeah,
The beginning of is spooled in. Yes, Corey,
I have a question.
please.
So, do you have to like rewind the film to
There's
So send it back to return it.
like?
It's a
the
blockbuster.
point of a platter is you don't have to rewind it when the movie's over.
Oh.
Self
Oh,
rewind.
okay, that makes
Once
sense.
you prepare it onto the platter, once you get those 20-minute reels and you thread them onto the platter sequentially until the whole movie is spliced on there, you won't have to rewind. And in the middle of the platter is this thing we call the brain, which is this little, it's the brain. It's this thing with like these rollers and things, and you thread the film through it, and it goes across to the tower arm. So there's like an arm and 3 platters. So it goes across to the arm, and there's all these rollers, and it goes through the rollers and then across the room sometimes to the projector, and it goes down vertically now through the projector. And then it comes out at the bottom of the projector, and then it goes through these rollers back across the room and up the arm to an empty platter. And then there's a ring in the middle of the platter, and it threads onto the ring.
That one called the butthole. Like, what's the? It's not the brain.
It's the take-up platter.
Oh, that's boring.
It's the ring. I don't know, the take-up ring.
Take up.
And so then it takes up there. So then when you're running the movie, it's spooling out of that brain, coming out from the middle of this sort of open loop in the middle, and it's going through these rollers, and it's going up and down the tower to the projector, down the projector, back up to, and then it's just spinning onto that take-up platter.
Yeah.
Are we all on the same?
No, I get
I'm
it.
with you.
And I
Yeah.
see why you don't have to rewind, because on the next platter where it's being taken up, it's setting up for the next projection.
So now if it's, hold one moment, please. So if
Hold for
it's taking
questions.
up on the top platter and then it's running again, exactly, you can take it back. You can do everything in the reverse order and have it take up on the, or if you have another movie playing, that one could be on the bottom platter and that might be your next movie, and you might run that one and then have it take up onto the empty one. You following?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
all really, what's your question?
So like, the film is just it's out in the dust. Like the actual ribbon of
exposed.
film is just like all willy-nilly. It's like near the
Ish.
floor, and like
I mean, ideally,
moths
you
are
have
going
it
crazy.
set up so though there's no. We're indoors now.
okay.
So you have
Well,
it set
that's
up
no, that's no fun.
You have it set up so that it's like there's rollers set up to sort of keep the film from sagging, like it's not going to hit the floor.
It just sounds like a
It's kind of sketch.
It kind of
It's
feels like,
It's kind of sketch.
what are those things called? The Rube
Goldberg
Yeah,
machine.
exactly.
It sounds like a
It's
Rube
just like,
Goldberg
rah,
machine.
rah.
Like, oh, we need some tension over here. Put another roller on it.
Put a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
like dominoes here
Yeah.
to knock over when the
Yeah.
film goes past.
So I'm running. This time I remember the movie
Okay.
because it's hard.
Can we
to
guess? Can we guess? Can we guess?
Go.
What year was it? 1999, 2000?
Yeah, but it was an old movie.
Oh, it was an old movie. I was going to say Dumb and Dumber because that's just what I wanted it to be.
That wouldn't be more than one platter.
Should I tell you?
I've never seen Dumb and Dumber. Never seen it.
What?
I've never seen it. I've never seen it. It's okay. That doesn't matter. What was the movie?
Alfred Hitchcock's Marnie
Oh boy.
archival print.
Oh boy.
Hot
See?
booth.
Hot booth exposed film in the dust.
Archival print
booth.
meaning what? It's like one of 4 or like the only
I don't know
one?
how many prints there are out there, but it came from an archive and it was a print that needed to be cared for.
Mhm.
You
and
had
I
white
was-
gloves on?
What's that?
Do you wear white gloves when you do these?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm obligated to answer yes.
Oh,
Yeah, in the hot, sweaty booth, you just put on your white
I
gloves.
sweaty,
wearing
sweaty
a
gloves.
hazmat suit.
Tyvek. Tyvek is very fashionable and also very cooling.
Yeah. Hot booth.
So it's an archival print of Marnie.
Our archival print of Marnie. And it's what happens with older prints sometimes is they can either like shrink or like get warped or curled funny.
Mhm.
You know, there's just like ways that celluloid ages. And so it was hot in that booth. It was sticky in that booth.
was it hot in that booth?
It was hot. I don't like hot booths. And what happens is in that open loop, if the print is sticking to itself because it's an open loop, it might actually suck another layer of film into the brain with it. And then it like causes what we call a brain wrap, where it's just like the whole like inner ring of the film just starts, because the platter is constantly spinning.
Yeah.
You
and it's
can't
constantly
stop it.
wanting to unspool. But if it starts getting gnarled up in there, it just becomes like a wrap and it just gets jammed.
It's like
Yeah.
a king rat.
I think we're talking about two
Rat
different
King.
things.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same thing.
I'm not in New York City.
Listen.
I'm on Nantucket.
You
There's
know,
no rats there.
Yeah.
the analogy works.
Not that kind.
It's a mess of long things.
There's like, salmon colored pants and
Yeah.
stuff there.
Boat shoes.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Okay.
I mean, if you're talking, okay, no.
All right. So, anyways, it started to want to sort of suck itself in. And I'm pretty new to platters, so I'm already like kind of anxious about this like crazy beast that I'm supposed to be taking care of. And I was like, okay. So it started sucking the print in, like layers of it. And so I started like tapping it because I was like, oh my God, like you can't do that. I was like, so I'm sitting there just going, okay, don't get sucked in. And then I started noticing the platter above it on the take-up, that as it was spooling onto itself, because it was warped, it started wanting to like unravel off of itself like that. So I'm like, I start doing this and I'm doing this for like the entire movie. So I'm like actually behind the projector because the platter was behind the projector. So it's like platter, projector looking out at the screen, people and screen, and I'm over here just doing this crazy thing. I can't check how it's looking on screen or how it's sounding. And of course, I leave my radio like on the rewind bench across the room, so I can't radio anybody. There's like a blade. There's like nothing near me. I'm just like totally like, oh my God. And the entire movie, I did this for the entire movie.
How long is the movie?
I don't know, like 80 something minutes.
Jesus.
And then the last scene, which I never saw because I never fucking saw this movie.
I think there's more than 5 good movies.
So the last scene, now when you get to the end of the movie, that feed like spool of film gets real thin. It's like this thin outer ring of film. And so it doesn't weigh a lot is my point. It's light. And it's still wanting to suck in more film. So I'm still doing this thing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a piece of fucking drywall falls on me. There was this like strip of wall behind me that was like that skinny, and it just suddenly came detached from the wall, and it like went across the film path from the projector to the tower, and like it took that piece of moving film down on top of me doing this. And then I was like, ah! And then because that last scene didn't weigh that much, it just started going like that on the spinning platter, and then it like flew across the room, and I was like, ah! And right at that moment, my print traffic guy, Ivan, bless you, comes in the room, and I was like, the blade, because in that instant, the film jammed in the brain. The last scene flew off the platter. The wall is on me, and it's jammed in the projector, and it's burning. You know, like that image where like the frame is burning and it's like melting on. Looks like it's melting on. Like that was happening all at once. I was like, "Hand me the blade," and he hands me the blade, and I cut it because I had to, because it was all jammed. And then I ran to the projector, and I like shut off the light and the motor and everything, and it was just like, oh!
How many minutes of the movie were left?
Like 5 minutes.
I got it.
Of a Hitchcock movie was left. And
that's when everything gets revealed.
Nothing I can.
It's like the most boring thing you've ever seen. And then 5 minutes, you're like, ah.
You like save the audience.
Yeah. And like I was just like, fuck. And you know, sometimes you just got to accept that there's nothing you can do. It's a fail. It's just a fail, right? Like
my
I
God.
just,
I mean, if a wall falls on you,
I felt
I
so
think there's
bad.
more things happening.
The blade. I love that like people are in a movie theater like eating popcorn in their salmon
you're
pants,
just up here, like-
watching a movie, and like all fucking chaos, slapstick insanity is breaking. Like it's totally nuts back there.
You're literally just doing this.
No, exactly. I was literally doing that, which is hard to do for like 80 minutes or whatever.
And then a wall falls on you.
Yeah. I was like, I give up. I was like in tears. I think I was in tears. I was like, I ruined a Hitchcock movie. I'm
An
the worst
archival print.
projectionist in the world. And they were like, a wall fell on you. And I was like, okay, I mean, yeah, but.
Oh my God.
I think the wall falling on you was a good enough excuse.
And we have like radio handles.
Mhm.
I became Marnie Stomper. For years.
Oh, that's
For
good.
years, people still call me Marnie because of
That's
that.
so good. Were you screaming Marnie the whole? Were you like Marnie?
We all have good names. There's like Cocktail Dancer, Smooth Like Butter.
Ooh, smooth like butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Wait. We have walkie talkies on sets.
We don't have
get fun
nicknames?
names.
Boring. Come on.
Like, you get nicknames on jobs,
Boring.
on like features and stuff.
Yeah, but not like everyday nicknames.
No, man,
Yeah.
you gotta.
Wow.
It's like it's team building.
Yeah.
You've gotta have nicknames.
Yeah, that's true.
So is Marnie like the one movie you won't project now? Is it like on your do not
It's your
screen
one
list?
whale.
I have not had to screen it since then. It has not come up. And I'm waiting for the moment that print comes across my hands. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the one. Actually, I don't even know if it's I think it might be projectable, actually. Because actually, with all that I just said, I don't think it actually suffered a lot of damage.
Just that one frame that burned.
Now, one frame, and obviously what I cut needed to be spliced back. But one of my colleagues came in with a virgin plastic bag and like scooped it up and took it to our inspection area and like cleaned it up and put it all back together. So I think it actually wasn't ruined, FYI.
I think it survived.
Yeah, I think it survived, but we'll
That's
see.
nuts.
We'll see.
Project it again, and at the end it'll be like, "Remember me."
If I ever run that movie again, I am literally texting all of my colleagues being like, oh my God, I'm running Marnie. Help.
You should bring a screwdriver and just put extra screws in each wall around you. Just in case.
So what we've learned is that a lot more money needs to be invested in projection booths.
Like maybe
HVAC.
HVAC.
Like, what the hell?
Yeah, not green.
We
Green
can
walls.
use this
Green
as a
walls.
moment to be like, you should support your independent theaters
Yeah.
because they don't make a lot of money, and like, go watch the movies. That's what helps keep
talking
them
to you.
going. Yeah, there we go. That's my ad.
That's your PSA.
That was my PSA. Go to the movies, people.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Rap Drinks. As a special treat, we're doing a giveaway for our viewers with Matthew's studio equipment. The first person to DM us on Instagram at ShittyRigs using the phrase righty tighty will automatically win 2 Mathelinis and this cool t-shirt. All you have to do is be the first one to get to us on Instagram, and we'll send it over to you right away. US participants only. Thanks for watching.
I was just in a theater in a city. I don't want to name anything. I was in a historic theater
In
in a city,
just city.
in a city in the
It
United
is-
States.
Okay, that really
And I was
narrows
like,
it
oh
down.
man, I know. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And I was like, oh my God, like, can I go in the booth? Like, I wanted to see what was in the booth. I wanted to see like if there was a 70 millimeter or 35 in there. I wanted to see, I wanted to Adrianne
Yeah.
out, and he's like, oh no, we don't do that anymore. It's all DCP. And he looked down, and there was a FedEx box on the floor, and he's like, yeah, there's one now, and he kicked it. He's like, yeah, they just gone. He's like, I think that's Oppenheimer.
Not
was like-
70. Couldn't kick that.
It was literally like a box this big.
It's a
And
hard drive.
Yeah, and what you said earlier about there being the keys, and I was like, I could just take like
It's not a real key.
No, I know. I know it's not a real key. I'm just saying.
It's like a skeleton key that
No,
comes
I'm just saying I couldn't take the box home. Like it was literally sitting in the lobby. Like anyone could have walked in and like taken a copy, but you couldn't watch it because you don't have the technology. or the keys.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's open source stuff out there. That's all I'll say. But you know,
Pirate Bay.
there's things you can do if you're savvy.
Blockchain.
You know, you can make shit happen. But
I mean,
I remember on our honeymoon, we were in Iceland, and we went to a movie theater. My husband and I to see some like art film, and it was really great, all that. And I came out, and like the door to the booth was open, and I was like, wait here for a minute. And I went up there and like totally shot the shit with these projectionists.
Oh,
and they
really?
had all of these 35 millimeter prints of all of these blockbuster movies. And they were like, yeah, nobody wants to ship them back from Iceland. So we just have them all here. And I was like, that's so hilarious. That's what happens. And it was actually during the sort of, so we got married in 2012. So that was like after the great digital rollover of 2010. So this was like, we're getting to a point where people don't even want to pay to ship the prints back because they're just like, whatever. We don't need those anymore.
yeah.
What's happening now, though? Because everyone's like, oh, film is having a moment again. People haven't forgotten.
But
Well-
is projection film having a moment again?
Well, before we jump into that, actually, I want to go back to this thing in 2010 because I know that specifically in 2010, there was something about how that changeover really affected like the job for people that were working in projection at the time. Like, and how did that impact you?
That was a really big deal in particularly New York and LA, where there's a lot of union projectionists.
Mhm.
And I mean, not just screening rooms, private screening rooms and post houses, but multiplexes.
Yeah.
And that's really where the impact was really bad, was in the multiplexes. When they all went digital, all of these folks lost their jobs like in one swoop. And it happened pretty much nationwide, but they really targeted New York and LA first, probably to like kill the unions, really, but didn't totally kill them, but because there's so much production that goes on in New York and LA, so it didn't totally, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys lost their jobs, and the job market got suddenly like more competitive and intense.
Yeah.
That was in 2010, and it was soon after that Woody stopped shooting on film, and I actually got laid off. And then I just left New York so I wouldn't have to pay the rent
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and just kept doing festivals. I just like stayed in that route. But like I said, like it got to a point where we were no longer prepping these big reels. And suddenly it was like all of these hard drives. It didn't happen in 1 year in the festival world. Like the way it happened in multiplexes was like overnight. But the way it happened in a film festival environment, it was sort of like a transition over like a few years. And then when we were showing film, it became more special because it was suddenly we were like, oh, we have to do that other thing again. Okay, how did we do that? You know? And, you know, it's exciting. But then, you know, then there were like these big releases like Tarantino and Chris Nolan, you know, with Hateful Eight was a big deal. And I remember
That was one of the 5 films. I remember you calling me being like, go see Hateful Eight in 70 millimeter.
no.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
not
you were like,
because-
it's no, but it was from the projectionist point of
Right,
view. You were
right.
like, it's not about the film.
No,
it's about.
I actually kind of appreciated the way the falling snow looked.
This is what I'm talking about. It was the quality of the image. Like
The
it
fact that you
didn't.
didn't have to do this constantly. to the reel.
I really appreciated like how sparkly the snow looked in 70 millimeter coming down. It was really, really kind of magical.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
I
about.
was
But
like, it's worth it.
it doesn't
It's worth
matter
it.
what film it was, really.
You
but
know,
the
and
sparkling snow.
I remember telling you like, whatever with Dune 2, seeing it on 70 because it wasn't really shot like it's digitized and all of this stuff. It's not really like watching an old 70 millimeter movie, and we ran it in 70, but then we just ran it in digital the other day, and I was looking at it and I was like, it really looks like shit on digital. Even the 70 looks better than that. So anyways, all right, I digress. Back, rewind. So where was I? What?
We're talking about
Sparkling
like
snow.
doing
Losing your
DCP, losing your job,
Yeah. So
New York.
I left New York and I just kept doing festivals and sorry, I've lost my.
That's okay.
I've lost a moment here. Whoops.
Well, you had like a huge hard decision to make. I remember all this. You were like, I don't exist anymore.
Oh.
And I'm going to change my entire career at 30 something years old.
Well, it was more than that. I mean, I also became a mom.
You just had like a massive career change. You were like,
yeah, I was a little bit like freaking out about being a film festival carny as a mom. So it was hard. But also it was at the same time that all this digital stuff was happening too. And I just didn't really see where this was going. Like all of us felt like, you know, our days were numbered and we were quickly becoming dinosaurs. We were being basically automated out, you know.
Yeah.
That's how it felt in a lot of ways. Like, who's going to want to pay for our expertise when what it looks like is a hard drive going into a server and hitting play? You know, they don't know that you have to go pause. Calmly.
I don't know.
Calmly.
I think there's something to like say about it because you went through this. Then I feel like the industry right now is going through it with
watching it
with
AI. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So how do you correlate those two times? Do you see like what's happening again, sort of?
I'm nervous for you guys.
Me too.
Me three.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the same time, like we felt like it was all over, our days were numbered. And then, you know, with Hateful Eight, the thing that happened was Tarantino and all of his wallets were like, let's make this happen. We want to do this big, wide 70 millimeter release. And what happened was this tech company that techs a lot of festivals, or did at the time. Their name is Boston Light and Sound, and yes, they're based out of Boston, but they literally, like, I worked with them internationally. They're huge, and they literally went around the country. This is after the digital rollover, so I have to backtrack.
Yep.
During the digital rollover, in the contracts with the financiers for this huge infrastructure change in multiplexes, digitizing them, in the contracts were these stipulations that the 35 millimeter machines needed to be removed from the booth.
Yeah.
These are huge
That's
machines.
heartbreaking.
These platters are enormous. Like, they take up like a whole section of this room. Like, and if you think of a 14-plex, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And so all of these theaters had to like get rid of these machines. They couldn't, if they stayed in the booth, they couldn't be aimed at a screen. So literally you could walk into these multiplex booths, and I would during festivals, we would sometimes use multiplex projection booths as venues for the time of the festival. And you'd literally walk in and there would be all of these projectors just aimed into the middle of the room away from screens. They're all looking at you like these cameras are looking at me right now. Hi. But all these projectors would be looking at you. It was so eerie, right?
Huh.
Because they can't be aimed at the screen. In some cases, movie theaters would literally build walls around their equipment and entomb it so that it wouldn't be in the same room
What?
as the digital equipment.
What?
Yeah. So somewhere out there is an entombed, like, projector and platter, you know. Yeah, it was nuts. It was so
almost
nuts.
feels like they're sending a message rather than like, well, on top of like making the
it was a
changeover.
very serious message of, we don't need you anymore. This is over. We've invented this technology that's eliminated the human beings.
Yeah,
that's really how it felt. And so now enter Quentin Tarantino and like this whole Hateful Eight release. And what happened is Boston Light and Sound went all over the country there were all of these projectors and platters that were just sitting in places like doing nothing. Mm-hmm. And so they just went and swept them all up, and people were psyched to get them off their hands, you know, and like brought them back to their giant warehouse in Massachusetts. And transformed them into 70 millimeter platters. So they weren't originally 70 platters. They turned them into 70 millimeter platters for Hateful Eight. And they transformed a lot of these projectors into 70 millimeter projectors that weren't, there were 35 projectors.
Yeah.
So they made all of this equipment happen. And then they went and dispersed it around the country for the release of Hateful Eight, which was like around Christmas, whatever year that was. And then they went around and hired all of these projectionists to go around the country and run and give up Christmas with their families to go run Tarantino's Hateful Eight, which happened to a lot of folks that I knew, and they made good money doing it. And then Nolan came around and was like, well, now that there's infrastructure for this, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah.
And he did it, you know, with Dunkirk and then just now with Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So suddenly we went from being dinosaurs to being like boutique.
Yeah.
Boston
Boutique
Light and
dinosaurs.
Sound.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
Boston
You
Light sounds
transform
crazy.
like a. Do you know how you transform a 35 to a 70? Is it?
Rip the gate out, Mike.
Yeah, you just pull it
Rip
out.
the gate out.
Mid.
I mean, I don't
mid-film.
really
Yeah.
know specifically what they did on these model machines, so I'm not gonna like talk out of my ass right now.
Yeah.
when I
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
you, but they weren't like, and it varied from. They probably had multiple models of machines, and they were also dealing with theaters that might have even had machines that could run 70 but hadn't done it in years, and they would have to fix them up. So they were like going around the country and doing like a case by case. This is what this booth needs. We're going to make that happen, you know, with the equipment they have, or we're going to bring in this equipment and we're going to make this work or whatever. They were like solving problems like all over the place.
All bespoke. How many screens was it? Do you know?
Oh God, I don't know.
More
Sorry.
than probably more than 10.
Yeah, more than like 5.
I'm gonna go on a hunch here and say more than 10.
and when Dunkirk came out, a bunch of us got hired and went out to do Dunkirk screenings. And when Oppenheimer came out, like I know folks that got on planes and went to go run Oppenheimer this summer and made some money in like the middle of Wisconsin, you know, or whatever.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. But I mean, these aren't like, it's not like, you know, Nolan and Tarantino are like spitting out 70 millimeter movies every other day. Like,
Right.
this isn't enough to like fully employ people,
Mhm.
but it's nice to get like a nice little cash cow once in a while doing
Yeah.
that stuff.
But it's also cool to be called up to do this very specific like niche thing almost, that like knowing how to operate these machines. And
Yeah.
it probably also speaks to like how well these machines can outlive all of this newer stuff too, right? Because like these things have been around for a while.
Projectors I ran Oppenheimer on are older than me.
Damn.
Damn.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say that. You're like, oh.
What?
They're old. What am I saying?
I set you up for that one.
Keep going.
I'm
Keep
talking
going.
about the projectors.
I need more wine. I
I'm
need more
tripling down. Tripling down. Don't you ever dare do that.
Suddenly my mortality has come back. Oh my God.
No insult to your age, but I meant like that's crazy that like they would, you know, be around for as long as they have been and still work really well.
Right? I'm not sitting there going, pause, lamp on, lamp on, lamp
Yeah.
on, lamp on. Am I?
Yeah,
No.
and you still know how to maintain these things. It's like muscle memory, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when I ran that 35 millimeter projector and platter the other night in that booth, I was like nervous going in because like I haven't done this in a bunch of years, and I went in and I started like threading it and doing it, and I was like, oh yeah, totally, all right, yeah, cool, and then I hit go, and I was like, oh, look at that, it's working right on. And then it was, of course, the digital projector was like, and I was like,
Oh my god.
And that's some like weird electronic thing that's like inside of
yeah, and they
circuit.
were like, maybe the booth's too hot, and I was like, I have a fan on. I
Like,
took the
every
AC.
booth
I aimed
is
the
too hot.
Yeah.
Hot news.
What have we learned here today?
I know, it's true. Well, you know,
So this digital revolution comes and like your job transforms sort of into like more of a niche boutique thing.
yeah, I went from being someone that I thought was going to get punched in the face
Yeah.
to being
asked for it.
someone who's like, oh my God, you're amazing. You know how to do this shit? Right on, you know? I'm like, wow, okay, cool. I'll take it.
All right. So there's hope. There's hope.
There is a,
There's hope, maybe.
in that department.
Well, I also know you got asked to do some work on a film, as a projectionist, right? Like there's now sort of like a
Oh, yeah.
contemporary need for a projectionist.
Every time I would be watching a movie, there would be someone in the booth. They'd be watching the movie in the movie that I'm watching, and there'd be the light, and I'd be like, "Someone's back there!" Oh my god, you know. So let me have another sip of wine.
That's why you don't know what any movie is about. Because the whole time you're like, someone's in the booth. It's not me.
I wonder if it's a platter system or.
Yeah. I'll totally be like, I wonder, like, if that's
That looks like
film or
digital light to
video.
me.
Like, what is that? You know. Anyways, they were like, oh, holdovers came to Boston, and my manager they told me like, oh, I work on Tuesdays, and they're like, they're shooting at the theater on Tuesday, so you're in the shoot. You're working on the shoot, and I was like, oh, okay.
What? Dreams do come true.
I was like, I'm gonna be the light in the movie. Yes, finally, it's finally happening. And so my booth mate had prepared a film. It was like an hour reel, so 5,000 feet, and then so I just had this like long amount of film to run when they were shooting, and they sent like a PA up to the booth, and I don't remember if I had my own walkie at that time, but they were like, you know, you can just start rolling because they're going to start shooting soon. And I was like, no. Like, I need to know when you're actually shooting, because I'm not going to run this for an hour and then have it just run out when you're in the middle of a take. Like, you need to tell me when to start and stop the machine, because otherwise it's going to run out in the middle of a take. And then you're going to be like, oh shit. And then it's going to take me like 15 minutes to rewind it and put it back up and thread it again and stuff. So then they had to like, they didn't quite understand. And I was like, no, come in here and see. Like, you see, there's a reel. And like, they were like all amped up, you know, like.
Just stream it on Spotify.
Yeah. And I was like, no. Look, see, it's a thing. It's like, I can't like, and then I got to take it and move it there and do the rewind and then put it back.
And then I have to tap
I'll
it.
never let that go.
I'm sure your booth at the Somerville Theater doesn't have walls about to fall on you. Please tell me the Somerville Theater booth is
And
in
air
better shape.
conditioning.
Yes.
It's like Come on, it's like an iconic theater. It has to have a better booth because you're in it.
Exactly.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Exactly.
So they didn't understand because they were like, what is film?
Yeah, so like I had to show them, and then they finally were like, okay, we're rolling. And then I felt like I was really more of a part of the production then too, because then I knew when it was like, okay, well, it's rolling. Okay, projector rolling. It's like, yeah,
You finally made it to production.
I'm like, finally, I'm part of this. I'm part of it, you know? And then when it came out, that was the funniest thing, is like, I was finally projecting it, and okay, this is kind of, all right, hold on, back up. So that movie is like supposed to look like it was
Shot on film.
70s, shot on film or whatever. These friends of mine who were techs, who they'll literally go to like a premiere of a movie, and they'll hang out in the booth, and they're just there in case shit goes wrong. There's like a projectionist and there's technicians. Like, we're gonna fix problems fast. Like, that's like pretty standard in like
They have
New York
a paper clip and a hole punch, and they're ready.
and they're ready to hit lamp on. And
Takes 5 guys.
it was premiering on film. It was on 35 millimeter, and they had like checked everything out, and they realized that that when they were looking at it on screen, it had like gate weave. It looked like the film was like, when a projector is not calibrated correctly, like the film might actually kind of like ever so slightly like weave around in the gate, and you'll see it on the screen. It'll look like it's kind of shifting subtly a little bit, you know? And they were like, why is there gate weave? And they were like they were like freaking out. They were like looking in the projector, like, what's going on? And then they realized that it was printed
With gate weave.
intentional gate weave to make it look like bad 1970s projection.
It's an Instagram filter.
So
It's 5,000 feet of Instagram filter.
So it was like gate weaving, and they were like, "Oh shit," but it wasn't. It was the print. So I was like, they were like, "What the hell? Why didn't anyone tell us?" You know?
There was like a text chain going around like
Yeah.
hot butter sauce or whatever his, his
butter sauce.
name is. You're not gonna believe this.
Yeah.
We gotta tell Candy Sticks. Tell Marnie. I want to see the text chain of all the projectionist names. It's just all like, what the?
Yeah. and then so then I finally projected it, and I didn't project it on film. I projected it digitally, which was a bummer.
Boring.
But then I got to sit in the theater and watch it. So I was sitting on the balcony of my theater watching it, which is where they shot it, in the balcony. So I'm sitting in the balcony watching the movie, and then the scene comes on, and I was suddenly had this like super meta moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm in the shot. Like I'm in the camera's here, and I'm like sitting back there, and I'm like,
It's a mirror.
I'm in the shot. And then it cuts to the screen, and they had like superimposed through CGI or whatever the movie that they were supposed to be watching on our screen. So then it was like the proscenium in our stage and the screen and like the movie. And I was looking at our proscenium and the stage and the screen, and our proscenium and the stage and the screen was on the screen, and I was sitting there and I was like,
The aspect's wrong.
I was like, oh my God, I never experienced it. I had this like moment
You just
and by
screamed out
myself.
loud.
I was like, oh my God. And I wasn't expecting it to be that hilarious, but I was like, wow, that was like really cool. It was really cool.
I thought you were watching that with a bunch of people in the auditorium. It's just you by yourself screaming.
No, up in the balcony.
Screaming.
There were people in there, but I was far away from all of them. I was like, no one was in the balcony on a Tuesday night, so I was just like,
There was someone in there.
Well, the history of your career has told us that there's always something way more exciting happening behind
In the projection
behind
booth,
the
yeah.
audience.
oh my God. I remember one time I was projecting, I don't remember the name of his movie. Crispin Glover made these weird movies. That,
Anthology. I remember this.
yeah, and I don't remember the name of the movie, but I was running this
It's
Crispin Glover. There's nothing went wrong with the screening at all.
like a worm or something. Like,
The movie was weird, but there are these bins that we put the 2,000-foot reels in, and they're like these old metal bins, and they have these doors that open, and they're like as wide as a film reel. So they're like these skinny doors, and like a reel perfectly sits inside, and then you close the door. It just keeps dust away from the reels.
Thank you.
And you can take the leader and spool it out, and it's labeled reel 1 of like Superman or reel 2 or whatever. Crispin Glover's weird movie, reel 1, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have like the leaders sticking out, and it looks like a metal box with like these little handles, and then like these leaders sticking out, and it's right at the door. And like Crispin Glover came into the booth because he was super nervous and amped up for his screening. And he comes into the booth to talk to me about something, and then he just looks and he sees the leader sticking out of the box. He goes, what? And he like picks up. He's like, what did you do to my movie? What did you cut my? And he was like, I'm not even exaggerating. He was literally having like a panic attack. And I was like, no, Mr. Glover. And I like pulled the handle on the door and just opened it. And this like beautiful reel comes out. And I was like, look, it's just a reel. It's a door. And it's inside. And then it comes out. And then it's inside. And then it comes out. It's just your movie. It's fine. And he was like, oh, I thought you cut it. I thought you cut my movie. And I was like, no. Cut it.
I'm a projectionist. Like, what do you think I'm doing up here?
Yeah,
You're
like, why would I cut your movie?
Here's your movie, Crispin, and you just look dump a box of cut up pieces of film over his
A
head.
virgin plastic bag.
Yeah.
Virgin plastic bag.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
That's such a fun example of like a thing that was made for a specific thing that like
What, virgin
That no
plastic
one
virgin
bags?
plastic bags.
Do they sell those? Is that like expendables I can buy like at Wits or something?
Yeah,
It's like
VPVs,
virgin
man.
plastic.
It's
VPVs.
No, it's virgin. They do
Yeah.
like planes and space flight and plastic bags.
Made by Glad.
No, like the doors that you pull the It's here. It's not here. It's here.
Yeah, it's in there. I was like, look,
somebody
look,
made
it comes
those
in and
were
out.
probably, there was probably like a factory in Ohio at some point that made those for like all the picture houses. And
Yeah.
you know.
And for me, it
now
was just like it's like in every booth. You see them everywhere, and I'm like, what? This thing? Like it's just a box.
It would be one of those things like on a game show, like, what is this object? And people would be like, a bread machine. Like no one knows
It's
what those
a
are.
guillotine.
A bread slicer.
Don't stick your head there.
I just felt like another person not trusting you
Yeah.
to know what you're doing
Yeah.
at your job.
Tits.
Yeah.
It's the tits.
Wait, but now you're saying it's changed, and now that you're looked up at like you're like, whoa, you're like a wizard.
They're
How
looking
you
up
get-
here, not here now.
Nah, that's still looking.
Yeah, I know,
don't
yeah. Patriarchy has not
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
Hasn't
it's
made
over.
it to the booth yet.
been.
I don't think it's over. Nah,
No, it's definitely not over.
no.
The final frontier is the booth.
Ladies, keep fighting the good fight. It's not over. Oh my God. So, what else? Is there anything else?
You have one other story you talked to me about
What's the other one?
in the Dominican Republic.
Oh my God.
I bet that booth was really hot.
Yeah. That's pretty high.
Hot booths.
God,
How hot
that whole
was it?
island was really hot. I was
Hot
like, yeah, I worked for this company called Hilltop Productions, and
Oh my God, I remember them.
and we went to the DR. We were like basically the projection crew. We went to the DR. Typically what happens is there's a tech company that comes and they'll set up screening rooms because we're not at a film festival. We're not always in a movie theater. Sometimes they'll turn like a hotel conference room into a movie theater or like an outdoor
palazzo.
whatever. They're creating cinemas out of spaces that aren't necessarily cinemas, or they'll fine tune a cinema to make it work better. Whatever. I arrived in the Dominican Republic this one year, and my boss was like, the tech company did not come, like for reasons I'm not going to get into. Like we just didn't have a tech company, so we had projectionists, but we didn't have anyone to set up the projectors. Basically, in short. And so the festival was being organized by a group that also ran like a TV station. So there was like a lot of audiovisual technicians on hand, but not cinema. And so this is like an example of, folks who have audiovisual experience thinking they can like do all of it, but there's niche things you have to know about every department, right?
Yeah.
And so here we are and on this island that I don't really speak Spanish. I can cobble it together in a messed up way because I speak Portuguese, but like, and my friend, James, who was with me, speaks some Spanish. So my boss like sent us to one venue and they were like, go see if they need help. Go make sure the 35 millimeter stuff is going to be okay. Because TV people don't know 35 millimeter. And we show up and there's this whole crew putting up a screen. They've got speakers. They've got a video projector. They're doing all this stuff. And I'm just like, okay. And like, they're not paying us any mind. They're just like, oh, okay, they're the projectionists. They're for later. We do our stuff. They come later and hit play. That was sort of the like theme, And I was like, James, let's go into the booth and see what's going on in there. And I saw this video projector on a stand and it's on a screen and they're doing their thing. But there was a 35 millimeter projector that hadn't been used in a year since the last festival. And it's bolted to the ground because it's a giant machine and it's like specifically set up for projecting onto a screen that's calibrated to it because it doesn't move. Are you following me
I
here?
love this. I'm so
following.
in.
Following.
So it's all
Bolted
like
to
kind
the
of dawning
ground.
on me as someone who's not a tech, who doesn't set up screening rooms, but I work in them a whole hell of a lot. So I can kind of get the basics. And I'm like figuring this out with James and I'm like, this seems kind of like they're doing things in the wrong order right now because they're setting up all the things that move and they're not setting up the thing that doesn't move.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, hey guys, in my whatever Portuglish Spanish thing that's coming out of my mouth. I'm like, so we need to blah, blah, blah. And they were like, Yeah. Whatever. Tits. You know.
Whatever, old woman.
Yeah. And so they basically were like not really paying attention to us. We were just like, okay, fine. And so we waited and they went on lunch break and they're like, all right, while they're on their lunch break, we'll be able to get into that booth more. There won't be people in our way. And we're going to try to fire up the machine and get it working. And so we were figuring out the circuit panel and everything, and we got the thing fired up.
Crazy.
And we're running like light on the screen, and the screen is here and the light is there, and we were like, okay,
Like, we're good.
and I'm like looking at the base, I'm like, that shit's bolted into the floor, or like that's gonna be a bitch to move. I'm like, so then we gotta wait for them to come back from their lunch break, and this is DR time, so it's like hours go by, and we're like, oh my God. And then they come back and I'm like, hey guys, I think there's a problem. And they're like, we're not really listening to you. And I'm like, will you listen to this? And then I literally watched their faces go like, oh, because they looked at the thing and it's bolted to the ground, and they looked at their shit and they were like, and I was like, yeah, you gotta move everything that you just spent the whole morning setting up. And they were like, oh. And I was like, yeah. And then and then they were like, what do we do? And I was like, this is what you do. You're gonna take that and move that there, and you're gonna do this and that. And then they were like, okay, Adriana, we're gonna do it all. And then they started, and then by the end of the day, they were like, we love you. And I was like, thank you. And I was like, wow, that took some effort, you know?
You make it sound like, well, you listen to this. You have like, you've got like film noir, and then the Dame walks in, and the screen was in the wrong spot. You don't listen to it. Well, you listen to this. Like, you make every like.
Listen to Marnie. She knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, I know what I'm saying.
Marnie's dead. She burned in a fire.
And I let her burn.
Yeah, you just have like all these stories that sound like they could very much be like mundane teching of equipment. Like it could be so
It was
boring.
so stressful because I was just like, we have to run movies in here in like 48 hours. Like, can we please? Because it's not just setting it up. Then once it's all set up, then the projectionist needs to get in there and like make sure there's nothing that needs to be fine-tuned in the machine, you know? But first you got to get the big picture set up, and then you got to get into the little nooks and crannies and make sure everything's working. Like, is the sound system okay? Does it need tweaking? Like, whatever, you know, but you need to get everything kind of in the right place first. So
at least the screen.
Yeah. So, but you know, like by the end of that day, they were like, we respect you. And I was like, oh my God, that's so good.
I'm glad it only took 12 hours.
Yeah. That's a record.
Honestly a record. Yeah.
It's like a record. I'll tell a quick one from Provincetown one year. Like, I was working with this.
Your favorite booth?
It was a hot booth. Again. No, because the other one was Nantucket. Now I'm in Provincetown.
No, this is the one that you can't open the windows until it's nighttime.
No, that was Rhode Island. That was in Providence. Now I'm
They
in
all kind of blend together.
now
It's town,
They're hot.
Providence.
Yeah, now I'm in P-Town, Provincetown,
baby.
Mass. And
John Waters.
I was running a twoplex, and they were platters. And my first screening was, I don't know, I'm going to say cinemascope, or I don't know. It doesn't matter. It was like whatever aspect ratio it was. The aperture plate. So there's in a projector, there's images, you know what aspect ratios are. I don't need to explain this. They're like the dimensions of the image. And they're, what?
Just kidding.
And there are these little aperture plates that are little brass plates that are literally filed to the aspect ratio. And you put them in, and it like crops the image.
Do they come in a bag? Like, do you put all the aperture plates in a bag?
If you're
A virgin
organized.
plastic bag?
So wait, you guys have a bag of like apertures?
Are you like a chef with
Like
a knife
bag
roll?
of T-stops?
Well, aperture plates are super custom to each booth. They're not like uniform. You can't walk around with a 185 plate and use it in any
pop
booth.
it in.
Because any booth you go to, the projector's in a different place. It's in a different angle. You're going to get keystoning and different stuff. So you can't use the same plate in two booths necessarily. Each booth gets its own set of plates. And they're
Oh my
custom
God,
to
that's
that.
so special.
They're custom to that plate because of the angle of the light coming to the screen. Does that make sense?
The way you're describing this, do you ever see My Cousin Vinny and Marissa Tomei when she's talking about the Pontiac positive traction? That's like you're describing that to me. I'm like, damn, okay.
Can you say it in a really thick New York accent?
Oh God, it always ends up sounding like Boston or something. I can't. Like it becomes this
the
mess.
aperture plates go with the booth.
The aperture plates go with each
aperture plates
booth.
are very specific to the projector and the booth.
Yeah. So, I had a screening. Like our first screening was like, I'm gonna say 185. I can't remember what it was. And there were a lot of problems in this one projector and screen. And there was this tech. I'm going to say his name, the late Michael Schaefer. He was a very interesting character, not liked by many, but I kind of loved the guy. He was like a hilarious crank. He was this like German dude who just like loved to talk to me about barbarians and shit. Like it was like so hilarious. And I had to spend this like entire day in the booth with him while he was like fixing the platter that wasn't working right, and then fixing this other thing, and then this other thing, and whatever. And like the last thing he was doing, it was a long, hot day in a hot booth with the barbarians and Michael Schaefer, and like the last thing he was doing was filing a plate for my first show the next day in that theater. And so it was like midnight or after midnight when he finished, and we were like so tired, and he like finally got it, and he was like, okay. And I was like, all right, you got it? And he was like, I think I got it. And I was like, all right, great. I was like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. I was like, okay, bye. And I thought the plate was just sitting there in this box, and like I went to go to sleep, and he went to go probably drink
and watch the History Channel.
Yeah, exactly. Alone in his room. And then like the next morning I come in extra early because I'm like, all right, I gotta like make sure everything's working right, because we just like did all of this stuff super tired and late, and I do everything, and I threaded the projector in the platter, but I realized like, oh wait, where's that plate? I was like, where's the plate? The plate's not here. I'm going through all, because I know exactly which plate it is. Like they all look similar, but I knew which one this was.
What are they made out of?
Brass.
Oh, fun.
So I'm like looking for these plates, and I can't find the plate anywhere. So I'm like, oh my God, I have to open this theater in like 15 minutes.
Adrianne,
and
your whole
I
life
don't
is
have the fucking plate. And I was like, mass art. Enter mass art. Because I also am like an amateur hobby jeweler, and I
made
brought
all of these rings on the fingers, and
I
this
brought
one.
like my files with me and like some metal stuff that I was working on. It was back in my room, and I was staying in the shack behind the movie theater. It was pretty much like a beach shack.
Was it hot in there?
It was no AC.
It was another hot booth.
I ran to the shack and I grabbed my files.
Wait, how much time did you have?
I'm going to say 15 minutes for dramatic purposes, but
No,
I don't
it works,
actually.
it works.
It was like short. It was not a lot of time. I like fucking ran and I got the files, and I come back and I'm going through this box of old plates that aren't going to be used anymore. And I'm just like throwing light on the screen and putting plates in, and I'm trying to find a plate that's just shy of what I need, so that I can file it to the dimensions I need. Does this make sense to you?
I mean, this is just
100%.
fucking crazy
Like, I
that this is
needed-
how it
This is
works.
fucking nuts.
I need like this is the aspect ratio. I needed to find a plate that was like that, so that I could file it out. But brass, FYI, is a hard metal.
It is.
And it's like
Totally, I get this, but I'm like, they're automating away your job. Why don't they automate away this part of it?
What? Like, that booth has been running for so many years. Like, how many aspect ratios are there?
there's
Well, you know, what's his name was
137,
filing.
185, 175, 166, and scope. FYI.
Oh, okay. So, but
handful.
why do you need to make a new aperture plate? I don't understand.
Because that one was missing. Like, there wasn't a good... So basically, when we were setting up the booth, which hadn't really been running... Like, they run, like, drag shows during the year.
So it wasn't
They
up
don't
to
really
date.
run movies during the year.
Right,
They run
right.
movies
Okay.
during the festival. So,
Okay.
like... And the booth is, like, not really... kept
It's
over
hot.
the course of the year. And it's hot. And like the plates that we found weren't good enough. So we made them better so that it would look good on the screen and not like kind of wonky and weird.
Because you're a professional.
Yeah.
With tits.
Like, exactly. I give a shit. That's why. I give a shit with tits. So I was like...
That's a shirt.
I give a shit with tits. That's good. So many memoir titles I come out for you tonight. There's like a 5-book series.
I'm going to be like hiding.
Okay, so you go
Head in
back
the
to the
sand.
hot shack. You get
Back
your
in the
hot
hot shack,
files.
I get my files. I run back to the booth, and then I'm like throwing light on the screen, and I'm finding whatever plate is just shy of what I need, so that I have.
You now have 8 minutes.
So I now, I am like shaking. I'm like in such a hurry.
That's
like
not a good way to file.
Yeah, and then I just like found one that like I don't have to file too much. It's pretty close, and I just start filing, and I'm just like sitting there filing, and I've got this loop going through the projector that's called RP40, and it's basically like, as you know from like video production, there are like these test patterns that you use, right, to calibrate your image or whatever. It's basically like a test pattern that has like all of the aspect ratios on it printed. And so you run a loop of it through the projector and you throw that on the screen, and you can see where the lines for 137 or 185 or scope or whatever need to be. So when you're like filing your plate down, you pop it in and out, and you can see when it starts to match the lines. Does this make sense?
That
Test
makes
pattern
sense.
wise? So
100% sense.
so I'm like filing a plate, like physically doing metal work, like dusting it off so I don't get fucking shards of metal in the projector, like getting all the shards out, putting it in,
You have like 8 air cans.
going
like,
back and forth. Yeah, basically. And I finally got it like pretty good, actually.
High five.
And I'm like sweating my fucking ass off. And I think I held the house for like 10 minutes because I wasn't done in time. Like I was like, I'm almost there. And then they loaded the house, and then I started the movie. I'm like, it was video trailers, and then I had to switch to the film, and I'm just starting the film. I'm like sweating, and everything's looking good on the screen. Like my nightmare is finally over, and in comes Michael Schaefer, and I can see him coming in behind me. Like I can see his reflection in the porthole windows, and he's just like, and he was like, Adrianne, I have to tell you something. I was like, wait, and then like I'm like checking the screen, everything's fine, everything's on screen, I'm good. I turn around and I look, and I'm like, what? And he's like, I realize I have your plate. I ran here, I have your plate. And I was like, I know you have my plate. I couldn't reach you, so I filed my own plate. And he was like, what? And he like pushed me out of the way. Not like pushed me, but he like kind of knocked me out of the way. And I looked in the window, and he was like, and he looked back at me, and he looked in the window, and he looked at the projector, and he looked in the window, and he looked at me, and he's like, you filed this plate? And I was like, yeah. And then he saw my files on the table, and he's like, you filed that plate with those shitty files? And I was like, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Where was that plate? And he was like, I'm so sorry. I'm very impressed. You filed that plate with those shitty files? I was like, I did. He was like, wow, I'm very impressed with you. And like an hour later, he showed up with like 24 oysters.
In a hot booth.
They were on ice.
Not for long.
And my booth mate was like, I'm vegetarian. I was like, more oysters for me.
Idiot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Holy
That is funny.
Yeah.
I can't believe you called your files shitty though. That's me.
They were shitty files.
But they got the job done. They did
He's
it.
like really a stickler for his tools. Like he's like, German tools are the best. And these were like shitty Chinese files. Like, sorry,
Yeah.
China, but your files are shitty.
Sorry, China. Your files suck.
They know. They know.
They don't care. They don't
You guys
care.
said it in unison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh my God. Mike Schaefer.
I just think it's so funny too, because you were like, "Oh no, I have to start the movie. I don't have it." And like, I feel like the filmmaker was gonna. You were like traumatized from the incident with
Forever.
the short filmmaker Not the short film. We don't know. He
Could have
could've-
been
could've
Napoleon
short.
Complex.
I'm
for
not
sure.
revealing.
Just assume it was short.
Yeah. So,
Let's just say
that guy was-
I wasn't worried about getting hit.
oh, okay.
You want to hit me?
Okay. I love it.
It helps that I've also been doing kung fu for a really long time.
Yeah.
So I'm just like,
Yeah.
what you got? What you got?
Trying.
Man, how cool would
I've
that
been
screening
training
have
for
been
this.
if like somebody got kicked through the projection
Oh my
window
God.
out to the audience?
I'm telling you, the movie sucked. Whatever was happening up there was way better.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
I know. I should have thrown him in the Providence River, man. Oh well, I didn't.
Will you tell people about leader ladies?
What about him specifically?
No one knows what leader lady. Do you know what a leader lady is?
Mm-mm.
Do you know what a leader?
Leader is?
You do.
A leader?
Yeah, like no one knows what leader ladies. You're the only one who knows. Like I didn't know what it was, and then
It's like a color timing thing. So like the labs would in the countdown there would be like a lady with like a color card chart, yeah. And they were really cool looking, and they were always like these cool ladies from like the 60s and stuff.
with like their hair done
They'd
and
all
like
have
blue
perfect
eyeshadow.
hair, yeah.
And it was just like 2 frames or something. How many frames was it?
4. She was like 4 frames.
4 frames. Like somebody's job was to be this woman who would sit with like posed perfectly holding the color card. You didn't need her.
No.
You needed the color.
Yeah.
The color chart. You didn't need the leader lady.
Well, you need skin tone.
Oh, I guess it was for skin tone. That makes
They're
sense.
always white too.
Of course,
Yeah.
because
Because
that's how it works.
This
Yeah.
is the 50s.
Yeah. But you
60s,
like
70s.
you like collected all the. You have like a
I
whole
collected
collection
them
of
for a
leader
while.
ladies.
I know. I haven't been doing that anymore, but because back in the beginning, before I kind of knew, the proper ways of film handling, I would maybe snip them out. Don't do this.
Don't do this
It's
in your
wrong.
own
Don't
hot booth.
do it because I want those ladies.
I'm talking
really cool.
like
They're really
college
cool.
kid era. Like I
Yeah.
would do that. Yeah. We don't do this anymore, Corey. They stay put.
They're in the hot booth.
Yeah.
Forever.
Yeah.
So you
right.
just have a bunch of ladies that you're gonna like splice together, and
I was like saving them, and then I would like, I don't know what I was gonna do with them. I don't know. Like all my art projects,
just
they would
insert them randomly into like
Into
a Chris
movies.
Nolan movie.
Yeah, totally. It's
yeah,
like
Dunkirk.
Batman.
I know. No, I don't do any of that. I don't cut frames out of movies, people. I don't do that. Don't throw me under the bus.
You got one last story.
My
to wrap
last
us
one
out.
is I'm actually not the projectionist. I'm an audience member.
ooh, a twist right at the end.
But this is hilarious because when I would work film festivals, when we would run Blu-rays, which was like a pain in the ass, the best players were the brand Oppo. I don't know if you're familiar with OPPO was like the industry standard brand for Blu-ray players. They're really good play. This shit matters because have you
No,
ever watched
I was gonna start singing a song.
Okay.
OPP. I
Okay.
mean, come on. Sorry, I lost my mind.
I gave you that.
Thanks, Adrianne.
So,
Best friends.
what?
Best friends. What?
What?
Oppo.
Have you ever like watched a DVD or Blu-ray and have it start skipping, and then you're like, oh shit, and you like pull it out and you like rub it on your T-shirt and make it nicer, and then put it back in and get it to play again?
I
Sure.
cannot remember.
Like,
the last
yeah,
time
sure.
I
Am
watched
I
a
am
movie.
I aging myself
no,
now,
I've
where
done
it's
that.
like the
Yeah,
era of like
you're old as
home
hell.
video with DVDs and Blu-rays?
Yeah.
So old.
Well, guess what? When that shit happens in a projection booth, guess what you do? You pull it out and you go. I mean, you use a nicer cloth, hopefully, but like it's that. It's
a
like
virgin
there's no
cloth?
like high tech,
Virgin breath and a virgin cloth.
which is why like projecting DVDs and Blu-rays is stupid. But Oppos are really good players. They're pretty stable and relatively reliable, so that's nice. But when the techs would set them up at festivals, they would always start with a factory reset, because in any projection booth, the projectionists would always tweak the settings for whatever was needed in that booth. And so when they would, wrap that festival and then go set up the next one, they would always just factory reset. Well, I had realized at some point, like 2 festivals prior to this event, that the factory reset was resetting a problem with the Oppo that was changing the alignment of the subtitles for subtitled movies, where the subtitles are their own files on the disc. So it was like actually like showing the subtitles too low, and it wouldn't even show up on screen. Like it would be below the image area. Like you wouldn't even see it on a monitor. Like it would just not be there. So you'd have to like find the setting, which is like 3 or 4 layers into the menu, where you can like tweak the setting and like move it up so that when you show the movie, the subtitles are where you expect them to be. Yeah. So I just like happened to have just done a festival where this had to happen again, and every time like there'd be a projectionist calling the inspection area, like, I'm having a really big problem with like the subtitles. And I'm like, check the Oppo menu, make sure they factory reset it, make sure you change it, blah, blah, blah.
Are you about to save the day?
So my friend Liz invited me in Boston to go see, there was this like Asian community in Chinatown that does this series called Films at the Gate. And there were these outdoor like late summer screenings. And I'm sorry, I don't remember what the movie was, but I went to go see this film with her. And it was on Blu-ray or whatever. And like, I'm sitting like second row or whatever with Liz and her friend, and the movie starts, and it's it's like a Hong Kong movie or something, and there's no subtitles, and like everyone's like, oh, the gasps of the audience, like, oh, there's something wrong, and I was like, in my head, I hadn't looked at the tent where the projection was happening, but in my head I was like, it's almost like this is an Oppo factory reset problem. And then I was like, in my mind, I was like, I wonder if this particular tech company is behind this. And I turn around and I see this guy who I know, and he works for that company. And I was like, it's an Oppo. And I got up and I was like, Lee, it's an Oppo. You gotta do. And I start screaming the entire menu, like, you gotta go into this and then that and then that and that and change it to this number and as I'm like running to the tent. And he was like, Adrianne, it's so good to see you. And I was like, you gotta blah, 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 blah. And so he does it really quick, and then he restarts the movie, and like the subtitles are where they're supposed to be, and the entire crowd was just like, yeah! And I was like, and I was sitting there going, I'm so cool, yeah, that's me.
I was like, is there a doctor on this plane moment?
Yeah, like, seriously. I was like, it's an Oppo. I know what it is.
That is so funny. You saved the day.
I saved the day. No one remembers, but I do.
Well, now YouTube is gonna remember
for infinity.
Forever.
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys always ask these questions like, what kind of advice do you have for people entering the industry?
Stefan always asks those questions.
Yeah, like what kind of pay range are we talking about here for a young person who wants to get into the projectionist biz? But like, I feel like you can't ask that question.
No, I mean,
this is a tough racket. And like, I have to be careful how I answer that, because I don't want to say this is over, forget about it. Like, I'm not a young buck, like this shit's like, some new generation has to come in and learn this stuff.
Yeah.
But there's problems. Like, I know, theaters in the Boston area where we're trying to train a new generation of people. And the issue is, you train the younger folks and then they move on to do other things. And it's hard to keep people engaged in it. And it's a lot of work to train someone to do, especially when in these retrospective indie cinemas where we're showing old prints and stuff. Like, you have to really train how to do this stuff, and it takes a while. So it's definitely becoming difficult. And it's another reason why, if something is really showing on film, like actually showing on film, it really is a rare event, and like you should go see that stuff, because I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I hope that there's some young nerds out there that really want to learn this stuff and like, you know, stick with it. Find some old cranky guy in a booth who's willing to teach you, and like
There has
charm
to be.
him and stick with it, because, you know, it's really cool. It's really fun. You're not going to, unless you're in New York or LA, you're probably not going to make a lot of money unless you get into the festival circuit. But, you know, I don't know. I don't really know the future of it. I don't have like a solid positive spin on this.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. I know that it's really cool to go see stuff projected on film. It's really beautiful. Like it's,
And it, you know, there's a world where we're listening to vinyls now, so
That's true.
people want that analog look, that analog sound.
and I think people want a world where they know there's a human being doing something for them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, they want someone back there doing this.
and like maybe that's the future of all of production too. I like to think that there'll always be room for that. Like, we don't want everything to just be generated by a computer for us. Like, we want to see that things, like, it's amazing when people make things happen. I'm going on the corny spin.
I love this.
No,
Go,
but
go, go.
that's-
Corny spin. Hello.
That's where the magic is.
It
Those are
is.
classic.
Yeah.
Corny spin. Adrian's getting corny now.
Corn falls.
Corn
A
filter.
wall. Behind the walls
Yeah.
of corn.
Johnny Cobb.
And, you know, I'm also doing film preservation now. So I'm like, you know, working
Ooh.
at Harvard Library and like helping them manage some of their collections. And that's really fun to
That's
see.
awesome.
And I wonder, like, what's going to happen, like, post 2010? You know, like, what's going to happen with all of these digital files? Like, how are we, like, you know, I'm
Yeah, how are you
going
gonna
through
archive
prints
them?
from the 40s that are still, like, pristine and beautiful.
Mhm.
But
But you can't plug in a hard drive
But then
from
you
like
got
5 years
Blu-ray
ago.
from like the 90s that you gotta like rub on your shirt.
You got like
Yeah.
Firewire 400.
or like files that won't play, like that are corrupted, and like, you know, it's really from a preservation point of view, it's really tricky to keep that digital stuff alive.
yeah.
It's
That's really
it's a
interesting.
massive undertaking that like libraries across the country are wrestling with right now
Yeah.
on like epic scales. Like, you don't even know. It's like insane. It's like next podcast episode. We're going to talk to the librarians.
I love that you turn everything's like high stakes. You have no idea what the librarian. I mean, actually, in America, the librarians are really at the forefront of some crazy fucking shit.
Yeah.
But this included.
Yeah. I mean, really, really crazy.
I have a lot of mini DV tapes kicking around. So do you.
Dude,
Absolutely.
you're lucky if they'll play.
I know.
You're lucky if the deck or camera will play it.
Yeah.
And you're lucky if it'll play without a lot of dropout.
Yeah.
Dude, I know. Like, all of our movies, they're dead.
They're gone. We should have shot it on 70 millimeter because we had
Yeah,
so much
duh.
money in art school.
But Marnie, it's alive.
It'd be interesting to just hear, because it's a hot topic. People have seen these like platters with Oppenheimer. It's just like you went into it a little bit, like how it like goes, but you're saying, I forgot what you said, but you said 15 minutes or some sort of length of film is some sort of time, but that must change with the
70.
size of the film,
And
right?
it depends if it's 5 perf 70 or 15 perf 70. Because 5 perf 70 is vertical, running through the projector vertically. And so it's, you know, I forget how many times bigger than the 35
It's like
millimeter image.
so 70 mil is like 65 mil film, because we shoot 35 mil film and 65 mil, so that's 70 mil.
Yeah, because you add soundtrack and or whatever.
Got it. Okay.
Although now the soundtracks are all like DTS, so they're digital. So there's just like data. There's just like a syncing data on the edge
interesting.
1010.
that connects to the machine that's running the DTS sound. Boring. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. So 15,
I like it.
15 perf is running horizontally.
Is IMAX. That's IMAX 70.
And that's
when
what
you hear people say IMAX 70, it's a freaking, those platters are beasts. I've never run IMAX.
So how much
I've been
bigger?
in IMAX booths.
How much bigger is that in relation to what 65, 70 mil would be running?
Oh God, I'm so bad at
What would it be
remembering
like?
the ratios. I'm going to script
no,
the
no,
math, and
no,
then
just-
projectionist watching this will be like, she's an idiot.
Just
Oh my
tell me
God.
like on the platter, like how many
Is it wicked
minutes
bigger
you
or
can
just like
get
a
on
little
it.
bit
It's like
bigger?
wicked bigger.
It's
It's
wicked
wicked
bigger.
bigger. It's
Okay.
wicked bigger.
It's wicked bigger.
It's wicked bigger.
Like 35 is like that big.
Yeah.
5 perf 70 is like that big, and 15 perf 70 is like that big.
Okay, so
How's
it's
that
like
for a technical
three
information?
Scale. Not
three
the scale.
times as big for
As
in
35?
that world.
Yeah.
It's big. It's big.
It's big.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
So it weighs a shitload more.
And when I say 15 perf, you know what I mean? Like the
On the side,
perforations
right?
in the
Yeah.
film.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
on
yeah.
each side, yeah.
Yep.
So 35 millimeter, one frame of 35 millimeter has 4 perfs, like my t-shirt shows. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mhm.
And on 70, it's 5 perfs, and it's 70
Oh.
millimeters wide. And
Oh.
then 70 millimeter
Triple.
IMAX is the same film stock, but it's running through the projector horizontally, and an image takes up 15 perfs.
It's just triple
That
the
made
size.
so much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
So
There you go.
it's big and it's heavy. So like Oppenheimer, we were running it reel to reel in our booth because we have
With
those
changeovers.
changeovers.
That's crazy.
But most theaters were running platters like you were talking about, but we were running reel to reel on these Norelco machines, and the reels were sent to us on 5,000 foot reels, which was about 40 minutes of film, and it's about 50 pounds. And so I was like lifting it up above my head, and like I have to get the reel onto a spindle. Like, hi everybody. I had to like fine tune, align this up, and it's like no joke,
50 pounds above your head. That's
Yeah, that's a lot.
And
It's a
so-
bag of
It's a
concrete.
cement bag. It is a cement bag.
it's insane. I would literally be like, okay, Oppenheimer's coming. Let me boost up my kettlebells and get ready for this because shit's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard.
You had a
And-
team meeting
And
with
the
like
way I would
sweatbands.
do it would be like, I'm going to try to do this seated. I would like pick up the reel. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to pick up the reel, and I'd like rest it on my thigh. I'd be like, all right. And then I'd like move it up and I'd rest it on my belt as a shelf. I'd be like, okay. And I'd reposition my hands.
It's like
so
a
I'd have
heavy
good
lifter.
alignment. And then I'd be like, all right, I'm going to think of something that makes me really mad because this is so fucking heavy.
Directed the short film.
That
Directed the
was
short
just
film.
gonna
I'm like, that
Lamp
motherfucker is
on.
not going to punch me in the goddamn face. And then I'd like get it up on the spindle, and then I'd lock the pin down, and I'd be like, oh my God, I only have to do that 9 more times tonight.
Like
And then by
twice
the
a day
last
for a
one, I'd
week.
be like, oh God, okay. And everyone out there is just like, all right.
This is an okay movie. I have
whatever,
opinions.
and I'm just like, oh my God.
Like it's always something more dramatic going on in the booth,
Yeah.
in the hot booth.
Yeah, lamp on, lamp on, lamp on, lamp on.
Like you could have died.
I could if there are moments because when you're doing a reel change, right, you're like looking at the screen. You're not looking at the projector. You're looking like if you've got projector 1's running film and you're at projector 2 waiting to do a reel change, you're looking for, if you've remembered seeing
Cigarette
this,
mark.
the little cigarette mark in the top right corner. Those are like spaced 9 feet apart. So the first one is the cue to turn the motor on the other projector. And the second cue is the cue to change the picture and sound over. Sorry, Mike. And you have the countdown is important. These are things that are important that people don't realize. The countdown is a measurement. So you put the 9-foot mark, the 9, in the gate of the projector so that when you turn the motor on, you have 9 feet till the reel starts. So that's in sync. So you're literally like, you see that cue and it's like you hit that button. So it's like you're like, think about the amount of time it takes for the synapse in your brain to go to the tip of your finger. Like, you're a part of that. Like, it's crazy, right?
It's like that's like
Corny
a
moment.
race car driver.
Corny
you know?
moment.
Yeah.
Corn.
You're seeing that burn, and then you're just like laser focused.
It's like Mario Kart.
So
when it's like beep beep.
Yeah. Damn it! I can't not look at that corner of the screen. Like, if someone's like having sex or whatever, I can't watch that shit. Like, I gotta look at the cue. I remember I was running a restoration of The Beyond, this horror movie, and at the reel change was like literally a zombie like backing a lady into a wall, and there was like this like giant nail sticking out of the wall, and like right at the fucking reel change was like the nail going through her head and coming out her eyeball. And like every time I was like, oh my God, the cue! You know, because I was like, how can I not watch this happening? You know, it's like whenever like reel changes or like crazy scenes, I'm like, why the fuck would you do that?
Why? Because you can't fuck that up. Because I'd be like, the nail didn't go in.
Yeah, but
then it did.
Sometimes you're like waiting, and you can't. You also have these moments when you're waiting to do a reel change where you can't not look at that corner of the screen, and you're like, did I put the right reel on this projector?
Fuck.
Did I clamp the reel down? Because if I didn't, it's gonna fall on my head as soon as I hit the motor button. Like, you know, you have these like thoughts,
that's the worst.
these like crazy thoughts when you're waiting for the cue, and like sometimes that like mental anguish will like get to you, and you'll be like, I gotta look, but if I
Oh my God.
You've made being a film projectionist like the most high stakes job that anybody does. Like emergency room surgeons? Nah. Nope.
And sometimes it's just like one kid in the audience eating popcorn, and you're just like, oh, okay.
That's the best part. It's like a grandma came to the movies to take a nap. And you're like, zombie.
Well, I learned if you treat every screening like it's the most important one, then hopefully you won't screw up any of them. Because if you get lax, that's just a kid who cares, you know, then you get sloppy, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta like maintain.
It also it speaks a lot like how much love you have for the craft and like for your professionalism. So kudos to you for
Thank you.
caring so much.
So,
You give a shit with tits.
I give a shit. I give a shit with tits. Oh my God. Next t-shirt.
That's the message for the people wanting to join the industry, whatever department it is. Not give a shit with tits, but also give a shit with tits.
That was the one.
No, I meant like treat every job, no matter what it is. Like if you care about your job at all, and you care about the paycheck, and you care about all the other people you work with because you're working in a department, except Adrianne, who's all alone in a booth all the time. Like if you,
oh God,
if you care about any of that at all, like treat every job, even if it's like, you know, not like like you're filming a conference. And you're like, it's a conference. It's not art. Make it nice.
Yeah. Take pride in what you do. Give a shit, man.
Absolutely.
Give a shit.
Cool. I think that's a great note to end on. So
Give a shit with tits is always the best note to end
Give
on.
a shit with tits, with your shitty rigs, you know?
Yeah.
Shitty rigs save the day.
Shitty rigs do save the day.
Usually.
Shitty files, shitty walls. That didn't save the day.
That did not ruin the day.
No. That's the
Paper
opposite.
clips, hole punches.
Your paperclip and hole punch thing, that was a shitty rig.
That was a shitty rig.
Right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it qualify as a shitty rig?
Absolutely.
1,000,000%.
I mean, most of these stories were shitty rigs.
I mean, there were lots of times where I'm just like, oh, that gate like tension is really weird. If I stick a little piece of cardboard in there, it'll like keep it steady, you know, like shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, like or like the locking pin for the reel broke off, and you're like, okay, paper clip.
Like you just
cardboard.
walk around with like bags of cotter pins. You're like, oh my God.
I mean, for
what's this?
a while, the best wireless video system in the industry was like, if you need to reset us, use a paper clip.
Yeah, oh yeah,
That
you're
was
right.
like
Yeah.
That was
To
like
push the little
Put it in the
button.
hole.
their official language was like, use a paper clip.
I think
So-
Nintendo's manual specifically said to blow on the cartridge.
It actually did. It said not to do that.
Oh shit!
On the back of the card, it said,
really
"Do
did?
You know
not."
Americans. You
But
can't
we
tell
did
them
it
us not to
anyway.
do
Why
something.
would they say that? It's
Did
the
it
only thing that
anyway.
ever
Because they
worked.
wanted you to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
It's the only thing that ever worked. I'm sorry.
it's true.
Oh man.
Well, Adrianne, thanks for coming on the show, for sharing all your experiences
Thanks
as
for
a projectionist.
letting me ramble.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great hearing you talk. I mean, we're always talking to people that are like on the other side, like, or in production. Like, we never get to hear anybody talk about kind of like the other side of like showing the movie and like the distribution side. So this is an awesome, just like
Yeah.
purview of that world. So
You like put the bow on it.
Yeah, we're the
Yeah.
last people.
You're the
are.
bow.
The last
are.
people before it gets watched.
You're the
Yeah.
bow on the whole
Make it
experience.
happen,
That's
yeah.
like
it's
so
good to know
heart-wrenching.
that it's just as janky the whole way.
Yeah. Support your theaters. Go see movies.
Yeah,
Go
see
see
movies.
films.
Go see
Actual
movies,
movies.
especially if they're on film.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a human being who gives a shit.
Yeah.
And when the film is over, turn around to the booth and go like
Clap
this.
for the booth. Yeah.
We love you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.
I think we made
Yeah.
a baby projectionist today.